He was hired by Saddam.
He was Saddam's #1 assassin for years. And the CIA had been trying to get him for a while. And I remember we went into this briefing of like, hey, we're going to go to an HVT. That's it. We're like, cool. Where are we going? Can't tell you. So he bumps across the street and he stops midway in the street to stop and lay down fire. So when he stops, I hear from his weapon. So I know he's laying down cover fire so that I can move. And as I turn to look at him as I'm moving, I just see this round just blow out the back of his leg right above his kneecap. I mean, it was so bad. When we showed up to Ramadi, there's a unit, a National Guard unit, and they had been in combat every single day for 14 months straight. That's how bad it was. Like every single day, they're being attacked. How did we not roll?
I guess we kind of did at the beginning, but it was more just like that was a drill.
Roll, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the difference in, drilling and rolling. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm like white belt. I'm almost have a clear belt on. So I'm not sure what good it would do for you to roll with me.
Yeah, but it allows you to move and me put myself in really bad, dangerous positions to have to work out of it.
Yeah.
That's what upper belt should be doing. I mean, that's what he did. He
right.
let me get into dominant positions and then would work out of it. So,
is that pretty much how your jiu-jitsu sessions typically go? Like what this morning was? What we did in there?
Yeah. We'll drill a move for a few.
You have
like 1 or 2 moves, and we'll drill it. And then sometimes we might just do like positional drills. Like, hey, we're going to start like, hey, what we worked on, start there. And you're fighting to get to this position. If you get here, you reset. And you'll do that for like 5 minutes straight. And then we'll flip flop and then do that. And then it'll be actual open rounds rolling. And then we'll just pick all the guys.
Gotcha. And when you say he, you're talking about your
professor.
Gotcha. Yeah, and who is yours?
Formiga. Yeah. Gotcha.
I'll act like I
turned something on.
No,
that's weird. I just got really bad, like deep tinnitus. Like it sounded like it's like ringing in your ears from being like.
It sounds like it started raining.
That was weird. All of a sudden, I felt like I heard. Wah! I was like, "Are they with me right now?"
You need some caffeine for it.
I mean, it's either gonna help or hurt it. Cool.
So, how do we say your last name? Dinnell.
Dinnell. Yep.
J.P.
Yep.
Dinnell.
Yep.
Yeah. So I feel like I've in all these books that have come out recently with, the last 20 years of us being in overseas.
Yeah.
Like, so Jocko, Marcus, Eddie, are all those guys, when they tell those stories, are you in the background of those and they're just changing the name around?
Some, I mean, you mean like Eddie Penny? Or Eddie?
Well, I meant Eddie Gallagher.
Oh, Eddie Gallagher. Yeah. So Eddie and I were never deployed together. So we never worked together. Now, we knew each other from the teams. I was at the training command with some of his buddies from Team 1, and we just knew each other from the teams. We have a lot of common
But you knew Eddie
friends.
Penny?
Yep. Yeah. Of them. Knew him. We live in a similar area, pretty close to each other. We had a lot of common friends in the teams. Sean Ryan, same thing. Like, we were one Buds class away from each other. A lot of common friends. Marcus was at Team 5 when I was at Team 3. They relieved us in Ramadi. I've worked for Jocko since 2005.
Dang.
Leif Babin, I've known him since 2002.
Right.
When we were in SQT together. So.
And then would like DJ and Cole be a lot? They were a little younger than you.
Who?
DJ Shipley, Cole Fackler.
Yeah, so DJ Shipley, who is a freaking phenom stud. That guy he's just an awesome human. I don't know him. I know of him.
Gotcha.
He knows of me. We don't know each other. We have, again, common friends.
But he was a little younger.
And then he went straight out to the East Coast and spent most of his time out there.
Gotcha. So you were on the West Coast.
I was on the West Coast my whole time. I spent a little bit of time out on the East Coast. I don't usually talk about that in detail just because of the command I was attached to, and I respect that command. And part of working with them is, hey, we don't talk about shit out here. And
Gotcha.
Like, Roger that. So
yeah, you bet.
I respect that because I was never like officially at that command, and I don't open that door.
Gotcha.
Out of respect for those guys, like DJ Shipley, who did his time.
You bet.
There. So.
Well, I got a bunch of questions. I mean, all kinds of stuff. But are you taking notes?
I just write down general thoughts so that if you're like, hey, so if you have something, or if you ask me a question, or hey, what do you think? Then I can hit points. But I figure, I mean, I'm on your podcast, and
you bet
you have a format, and we'll follow it.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. Yeah, have a format.
I mean, we could talk about it on the podcast or promote it, or I just want to learn more about Cowboy Cerrone's. He has a kids camp in June. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Cerrone. He's got. I want to say he started the kids camp 1 or 2 years before he retired, but essentially, like in his retirement, it's one of the main focuses that he'll have throughout the year. He's constantly getting ready for kids camp, and it's basically 30 to 40 kids will come out to BMF Ranch and stay for a full week and they break them up into 4 teams. And Cowboy's a counselor, I'm a counselor, Dustin Jones is a counselor, and then he's working on the 4th one. It's a guy named Dingo. He's a Olympic or X Games snowboarder. So those are the 4 counselors. We'll typically have guests. We roll jiu-jitsu every morning. Is that even how you say it?
Yeah,
is that how I would describe that? We roll jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, we roll or we train.
So train.
Usually people are like, hey, let's roll, meaning like we're
doing let's go have a session.
Let's roll. But roll jiu-jitsu is I would say it's a kind of a universal term of like, hey, we're going to go train jiu-jitsu. You want to go roll some jiu-jitsu? Yeah. Because guess what? Cool. You're going to be rolling around. So.
Gotcha.
And someone's like, oh, it's not that. He's like, cool. Yep. Thank you for your education on jiu-jitsu.
So, no, selfishly, I get, it's essentially, everybody donating their time for a week, but I also get to hang around Cowboy and learn some stuff in the mornings. And he's got a cool gym, and they roll every morning for 2 hours. But
do they need help? What do they need help with? I mean, because they're pouring back into kids, right? To teach them how to be young men. You
being a purple belt, number one, you'd be able to help with jiu-jitsu, but also we also do some shooting. He's got a super cool little range there at his house and a bunch of cross ties set up. And so you'd be able to help with that as far as instruction on firearms.
Yeah. I just remember you talking about on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I was like, because part of my thing is throttling back how much I travel this year. Because on average, I'm gone working for Echelon Front 3 to 5 days a week, every week, right? Dang. Traveling, speaking, which I love doing, but it's like, okay, I still need to, that's why me and my buddy started Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu, which is a ministry to like help spread the gospel through jiu-jitsu, knowing that people will come to a free jiu-jitsu seminar that would never go to a church, but they'll get the free seminar. Then somebody shares their testimony. We do a prayer for salvation, and then it's open mat for rolling. And it's been pretty cool. We've had guys that were like, oh, I'm agnostic, but I'm just here for the jiu-jitsu. We're like, cool. And they've come to enough of them. We're like, hey, I have some questions about what you guys are talking about.
Right.
Like,
you bet.
Cool. Let's go. And so that's, a way that we give back. We have that podcast, and I have my podcast is to be able to talk about the kingdom and spread lessons learned. So if they ever need help with kids stuff, I'm all about that, man.
Yeah.
Serving
I'm sure he'd love to have you out. So, we can talk about that. We can figure out the schedule. It's late June, but cool. Plan on coming by for, 2-3 days. Yeah, you don't have to be there the whole 8 days or, whatever it is, but if you wanted to come out for a couple of days and teach them something, they'd love that. Cowboy would be, forever grateful.
I would be honored. That'd be cool.
Thanks for listening and watching this episode of the Rodeo Time Podcast. We've got JP in the house, Navy SEAL, and keep listening because the stories get way more intense as the podcast progresses. Real quick, I wanted to tell you who this is brought to you by. This podcast brought to you by Rodeo Time, rodeotime.com. This is the apparel line. It's been around for 10 years. Literally the softest, the greatest designs, the greatest t-shirts you'll ever wear on your body. Designs inspired by the one and only Dale Brisby. Now, Ranch Fuel, love that sound. Ranch Fuel. Ranchfuel.com. It's the most delicious, most healthy energy drink you'll ever have in a can. All right? All natural products. It's clear liquid. All right? None of that brown stuff. Go to ranchfuel.com. You get 30% off. You also get free shipping. Right now, use code DALE, D-A-L-E, for an additional 15% off. That's 45% off for all you math junkies out there. Plus free shipping direct to your door. ranchfuel.com. One quick thank you to Rock and Roll Denim, American Hats, Can-Am Side-by-Sides, Total Feeds, and Mountain Ops Supplements. I'm Dale Brisby. Now back to the podcast. What's your cap? Little Cattle Company?
Yep. So this is the beef company my best friend started in 2017. And then my wife and I invested into it last year.
Gotcha. And it's
yeah, so it's
ranch to table beef.
Yep. Yeah. Here in Texas, Black Angus steers that are grass fed, grain finished, which I know that you like that, right?
For sure.
That's the formula you like.
Correct.
That's what I heard you talking about. And, so Stephen Little is my best friend who started the company. So that's where the Little Cattle Co. comes from. His Uncle Rocky, has been cowboying all over Texas for 30 plus years.
Yep.
So his business partner, Richard, they have all the steers. And so Stephen was coming up with the idea and he promoted it or brought it by his uncle. And he's like, well, let me talk to Richard. I think we could help you guys out with the steers. And then it became a real thing. We're like, okay. So then it's like, all right, we have, we're buying the steers. We're, paying for the feed. We're feeding them. We found a processor, and then getting them processed. And then we had to find a warehouse for all the freezers and fulfillment and shipping and the website. And so we ship to all lower 48. And it's cool because it's just direct to consumer. And if someone wants to go on there and just get one tomahawk, they can get one tomahawk.
If
you want 10 ribeyes and 5 fillets and 10 pounds of ground beef, we can do the ground beef. And we have a ground beef subscription, which is pretty cool. We cracked that code because everyone's like, hey, that's kind of the make or break in this business because you have so much ground beef.
Yeah, you got to do something with it.
We've actually sold out of our ground beef every single time.
Awesome.
Because, how, when you're processing these steers, if you go to the grocery store, it's nasty. Hamburger meat, the more you learn about it, is nasty because if you go to the grocery store, they could have 3 to 4 5, 6, 700 different steers that are all mixed together.
Right.
And, and then so that means that they have the preservatives and all these other things added to it. And a lot of cross contamination. Our hamburger meat comes from one steer. We don't
you bet.
We process 3 to 4 at a time. The business is slowly ramping up. So hopefully we'll be doing 4 to 5 at a time, which will be nice. But we don't even mix those for the ground beef, and it all just comes from there. Yeah. So it was just
that's a good formula. I'm with you. I like the grain fed. It's just the marbling is just I don't know.
Yeah,
a good grain fed ribeye. That's what. Well, if you'll send me, if you'll send me,
no.
I will order it.
No. We're not doing this.
But yeah, I'll
don't make this friendship weird.
I like
you have your own beef. My intent was not for this conversation to actually ever come up.
No, I wanted it to be. I have a ton of, when you say you have your own beef, yes, I do.
Yes.
I have 3 freezers full of ground beef. And that is it.
Let's go.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've had some bulls go down, and it made for good YouTube videos because we had to go catch these wild bulls out in the brush. But so like bull broke his leg or ankle or whatever, and
you just all ground beef.
We just did all ground beef. Yeah,
because they're older, right?
Yeah, I've tried ribeyes with them. It's just like
too
beef
chewy
jerky.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I had been feeding out some steers that I was going to have, processed for myself. But now that I've got all this ground beef, I figured, well, let me just sell these steers because prices have come up. I'll buy my own steaks.
Are you selling steers also right now?
Well, I'm saying like I like at the sale barn. Well, like sell them live.
Instead of going to the sale barn, I'll buy them from you.
I've got. We could strike a deal with some beef.
I'd rather, but like if you, anyways.
But what I'm gonna is like if I process my own, I'm also gonna get a bunch of hamburger meat.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I've already got 3 freezers full because I've lost 3
so
bulls.
So you'd prefer some ribeyes and some sirloins.
You know what I mean? So I sell my steers, I buy the steaks at the grocery store, and then I've got plenty of hamburger meat for my hamburger helper days,
Okay, I like it.
But now that I'm on carnivore, I eat a lot of meat.
Yeah.
So,
how long you been on carnivore?
Since last January.
Really?
Yeah.
No, like, so are you doing any fruits and veggies with it?
I do fruits.
Okay,
I don't do
fruits.
vegetables.
So you're kind of like the animal diet where it's meats, fruits, and then are you allowed any dairy?
Yeah,
honey?
so my understanding, carnivore would be like anything from an animal.
Yep.
Obviously fruit's not, so I added that in just because like I started running out of energy like super bad.
There's a reason why God gave us fruit to eat.
You bet. And I don't think vegetables are like, I'm not like anti-vegetable.
I don't care either way.
I just personally,
I don't like them.
Now that I know that I can survive without them, why eat them?
You don't need them.
Exactly.
And if I feel like I'm missing those nutrients, then I'll up the fruit, or like Jocko Fuel has these greens that I take. And I'll just mix them and drink them. And it's like, cool, I'm getting all those things that, the micronutrients that you need. But like you said, I mean, I heard you talking about this on Joe Rogan's podcast, and this is something that, you're in the beef industry and cattle and ranching. And beef is the most nutrient dense source of fuel that God created.
No kidding.
Why are we not eating beef? And the lies that were out there is like, oh, beef is bad for you. Eggs are bad for you. Actually, my great grandmother, who lived until she was 97 and could still do in her early 90s pull-ups from the doorway. Like, she would get her grip on the door jamb and do 2 to 3 pull-ups in her 90s. Guess what she ate every single day?
Exactly.
Steak and eggs and sourdough toast and fruit.
Well, to be honest, the thing that converted me
and Coors Light
was at a girl.
But I don't drink anymore.
I heard this. I want to say it was like either Jordan or his daughter Michaela Peterson.
Yeah.
Talk about, because she's on the lion diet, which is only beef.
I couldn't do that.
The lion diet is a little more like, she'll eat New York strip for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Occasionally she'll have lamb.
That's cool. I mean,
but and then seasoned with salt. And that's like it. That's like all that girl eats, and it like cleared up all these immune disorder, like autoimmune disease.
That's
deals.
Amazing.
Whatever. The point is, I was listening to one of those podcasts, and I think it might have been a guest that she had on say, half the people that die from a heart attack did not have high cholesterol.
Yep.
And the way that everybody talks about cholesterol, I would have assumed that it would be 97% of the people that die from a heart attack had high cholesterol.
You mean the education that we got from the government?
No kidding. And so that was like, wait a second.
Oh, hold on.
Because my dad died of a heart attack.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what his cholesterol levels were, but like by that, 5 out of 10 of those kind of people didn't have high cholesterol.
How old was your dad?
55.
Okay. That's young.
That's pretty young.
Yeah, that's young.
I don't know. That's what caused me to even like start researching, did all this stuff.
But people can die from heart attacks from like stress and other things. I mean, there's a lot of other things that cause that.
They don't, nobody knows for sure.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people speculate.
Yeah.
And they, for some reason, have attached it to red meat. Mm-hmm. Just like everybody just assumes that. And so I don't know. I'm not telling people what to do. I'm not telling people that I have, some magic bullet. All I'm saying is, like, if that fact is true, that half the people that have a heart attack don't have high cholesterol, that's enough information for me to, okay, well, I'm going to eat more red meat.
Yeah. And if you're concerned about it, go to the doctors every 6 months and get your stuff tested.
Yeah.
And the numbers don't lie. Like,
yeah, and I've been on carnivore. I've been doing that for a year and a half, and my cholesterol is not alarmingly high.
There you go.
It's like, it's pretty moderate.
Yeah. And you feel good, and you're able to work hard, train hard, maintain a good, healthy lifestyle. I mean, do you feel good?
Yeah.
So that, okay,
fantastic.
Cool. Then yeah, keep doing that. It's like what we teach people at Echelon Front. So I work for Jocko and Leif at Echelon Front. We're a leadership consulting company. I work for Leif in SQT. We went through SEAL qualification training together. He went to Team 5. I went to Team 3 with Seth. And then we did a workup deployment. And then we were part of Tasking and Bruiser, working for Jocko. And that's how I've been with those guys forever. And one of the things that we teach people at Echelon Front in regards to leadership is find what works. There's only two measures that matter: effective or ineffective. And if the carnivore diet is working for you, why would you not do that?
You bet.
And so to the people that are listening to this, find what works for you. But I'd be willing to bet a very large amount of money that if you were to eat good quality beef, occasionally some seafood, occasionally some chicken, but we want to focus on good quality beef.
Right.
And fruits and, some honey and maybe some dairy once in a while. I wouldn't go crazy on the dairy, but just, a little bit if you needed whatever. Right. And you did that for 30 days, you would notice a significant difference.
Yeah, for sure. I know I did.
Yeah.
Like you can look at a set of weights and gain muscle. You know what I'm saying? When you're having that kind of protein.
Yes. But so and the fats are good for you. Your brain, those amino acids.
100%.
Like, you need that stuff.
You need that for brain function. Turns out.
Yeah. Do you do any rice or potatoes occasionally?
No.
Just straight no carbs.
Occasionally, I will have sushi.
Oh, yes.
And, that'll have rice in it. So, yes.
Sushi doesn't count.
Correct.
I mean, or.
So, I'll have some. And the only reason.
Pizza? You ever do pizza?
So, like, I did pizza. That was like my cheat meal at the end of the year, which I never was like a super big pizza guy anyway.
Yeah,
but
it was a problem.
I'll name drop, but I was in Vegas, which is in December. I'd been good all year. I'd kind of thought about, we were at the NFR. I'd kind of thought about cheating on carnivore diet. And after the rodeo, I went up to Kid Rock's penthouse and I walk in.
That's amazing.
I have been good all year. And he said, Dale, come over here and get some of this pizza. And I was like, this is a good time to cheat. And so like I walked up and I think I probably overstayed my welcome because I ate nearly the whole pizza that night.
That's
and
amazing.
It was the most delicious cheat that I've ever had.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So anyways, I cheated a couple more times at the end of that year. And but yeah.
That's cool.
This year I've been a little bit more lax.
Yeah. And what's cool is like that diet or lifestyle, if you don't want to say diet, eating habits, that's sustainable.
Well, for me personally, like I got to go all or nothing.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Like I got to go all year. I've got to like get a streak going because if I give myself any bit of rope, like I'm going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
that's
I'll eat the whole basket of chips and salsa before the meal shows up. I'll eat all the bread that Olive Garden leaves out there.
And I've been shifting my eating habits probably the last 2 or 3 weeks now. And, it's great. I lost just over 14 pounds in 10 days of just focusing on maintaining a legitimate caloric deficit.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
14 pounds in 10 days.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I was maintaining a caloric deficit of between 1,700 to 2,500 calories every day. I was in that deficit. So for those that don't know what that means, let's say I would burn 3,500 calories and I would only eat 1,800 calories. So that would be my deficit.
Yeah.
And so there's a few times, I only ate like 1,500 calories throughout the day and I burned, 3,500 calories. And so I had the 2,000 caloric deficit. And the most was just under 2,600 one day. But I was fasting most of the day. And once you get in that habit, like so the first 3 days really sucked. No sugar, no soda, no processed carbs. And it really sucked. And it actually made me really mad at myself that I had
even agreed to do it.
No, well, yeah, a little bit. That little inner voice started to creep in. But what I was mad at the fact that I allowed my body to become addicted to sugar and all these other things. And the fact that my body was having withdrawals from not eating sugar and these carbs showed me, oh, that's poison. That sugar is straight up poison.
That's a good point.
And it made me want to go even harder because at the beginning I was like, well, if I just do like 1,500 calorie deficit, that'll be good because then, it's, if I do this, it'll be good. And then when I realized how bad I felt, I was like, nope, double it. Like I'm going harder than pain.
Dang.
Cause I'm like you, if I'm gonna do something, I have to go all in. Right now I'm on day 453 of no alcohol. because I woke up one morning and I was like, I'm not drinking anymore. And I didn't do anything stupid the night before. I didn't get in a fight with my old lady. Like, nothing like that. Like, my wife and I have a really good relationship. And it was just one of those things where we'd gone out drinking with our friends and, took a bunch of Ubers everywhere. And, the next day I wake up, I'm like, why? Like, I can go out and have fun without drinking. And for what I do at Echelon Front as our chief training officer, there should be zero risk of me ever putting myself in a position where I do something stupid or say something stupid or get hurt.
Yeah.
And, my wife and I, we have 3 kids. Like, I'm being selfish. And also, I've never once woken up like, man, I really wish I was hungover and non-productive. And, because how many times in the past I'd woken up and I'll still get up and do stuff, but I'm just feeling like crap. And I know that I wasn't a good dad. Not that I was a bad dad, but I wasn't being a good dad, meaning I wasn't doing as much as I should with my kids. Instead of playing with them and doing stuff, it's like, hey, you guys keep it down. Your mom and I are sitting on the couch. Like, dude, come on, man. Like, those kids just want to spend time with us. They want to create memories.
For sure.
And we're not creating memories. We're not doing stuff. And alcohol's a poison, man. And I just didn't want it that anymore. And so I like you said, you paint yourself in a corner. I decided just to stop drinking. Told my wife, I was like, hey, I'm not going to drink anymore. I was like, I don't care if you obviously drink or have wine or margaritas. Like, I don't care. Like, for me, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then I went on Jocko's podcast and I went hard in the paint talking against it. So I definitely painted myself in a corner for a while. And he's like, how long are you going to do it? And I was like, I don't know, 6 months, a year. I don't know. And I was like, well, if I go for 6 months, it'll be exactly to the date when I'll be in Vegas competing for a jiu-jitsu tournament. Because I planned on going to Worlds. And I said, well, if I do well at Worlds and I end up on the podium, I'll have some drinks with my wife and friends to celebrate. So that was my thing. Okay, exactly 6 months, no drinking, celebrate a jiu-jitsu victory or whatever. Yeah, again, in my mind, trying to justify why I should be able to drink again. And it gets to the point where it's like, all right, now I'm booked for work and I'm not going to go do that. And I was like, oh, actually, cool. I'm not going to go to Vegas, so I'm not going to drink. And then I'm like, cool, I'll go to a year. And then now I'm like, I have zero desire.
That's a good,
Yeah,
I just never, my dad didn't drink growing up.
Yeah.
And so I didn't prior to 21 because I was like, well, I'm not supposed to be drinking as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, and so I won't. And then I turned 21, and I was like, man, why start now?
That's cool.
And before I knew it, it's just like now, to an extent, I had then become to all my friends this guy who hadn't drank ever. And cool. I guess it was...
You're part of your identity.
Yeah, I think so. But also, like, deep down, like, I just know that, given, like, my DNA and knowing myself with the way I treated food, like, I do have, like, a little bit of an obsessive type personality. And I just didn't want that to grab a hold of me.
That's smart.
And so watching all the ways that alcohol had caused problems in my life when I wasn't even drinking it, dang, like how bad could it be? Yeah. Could it be if and a friend told me that it's undefeated. If you go up against it one day, it'll win.
Yep. 100%.
And every time you decide to drink it is technically you're going up against it. And but some people, for the most part, win, maybe 99% of the time, but there's always that 1% where maybe you might, I'm saying like, maybe there's this one person who just is really good at, swerving what alcohol can do if it grabs you. But then there's a 1% of the time, even for that person, where it's eventually going to get you.
Yeah.
And, because coming from a guy that doesn't drink it at all, it still gets, somehow it finds a way to cause trouble in my life. I'm not even drinking it.
It always will.
But anyway, I don't know. I'm getting off into the weeds, but I think it's for me personally, knowing that like I can't go through a bag of chips, I can't set down a bag of chips. Like I'd hate for that to be a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, because you would be doing and saying things that are not of your character.
Yeah,
that's what the devil does. Is he allows you to open up that door. It's just a slight little crack.
Mm-hmm.
You're not sitting there going, "Hey, come on in."
Oops. Yeah, no, you're good.
You're not saying, "Hey, come on in," but you're.
Yeah, it's just
a little crack, and then it's like he creeps in, and that's what alcohol. It was for me. It was the same thing with porn. I went to an event that my buddies have a ministry called Walking in Truth,
Yeah.
And they had these events called Pursuit for Truth, where you're going to seek just a closer understanding and relationship with God. It's your pursuit. And I went to this event in February of 2022, and it was awesome because it's like, why do you go to the doctors? To make sure you're healthy and get a checkup, and so that if they can find something for early detection, that you can treat it and get rid of it. And so for me, that's the way I looked at Pursuit. I knew that I needed to go. I needed to clean some stuff out. I needed to get rid of some baggage, some burdens that I had been carrying. And like we all carry, men and women all carry these burdens. Men carry a lot of them as well, especially then I can relate to men. And one of them was porn, and it wasn't something that was just all of a sudden one day like boom, but it was a slow creep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with alcohol, man.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with drugs. Like, it's a slow creep. Nobody goes, I want to be addicted to meth one day.
Right, you bet. Yeah,
like nobody's like, I want to be a crackhead. Yeah. I want to be addicted to cocaine and lose my family and lose all my money. Like, I can't wait to go to jail for a DUI. No, but it's like,
says that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a drink, or you try drugs with your friends or whatever, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, it's a bad thing. And so it was just a casual creep with the porn, and it was an attack from the devil to ruin my marriage, because marriages are under attack right now. And when I went there, one of the things for me that I was able to give up and just fully release the addiction to, and I say addiction, like it wasn't like I was like, you hear some people like it's really bad addiction with porn, but for me, like I shouldn't be watching that ever.
Yeah.
It's poison. It reprograms how you think. It ruins men and women's perception of what a relationship like. And that's a gift from God. Our intimate relationship with our spouse is a gift from God, and it's ruining that.
You bet.
And, so I went to Pursuit, and, man, I haven't
got convicted.
I haven't looked at it or had the temptation to look at it since February of 2022.
Dang, that's good for you.
It's been awesome. And and that's why anytime they have these events, these Pursuit events, I'm there to help serve.
Yeah.
Because I get so much from going and serving, and I'll be like, hey, actually, I got some stuff from high school I didn't even think about.
You bet.
Let's talk about this stuff. Let's work through it. So it was cool. And so I'm like you, I think a lot of people are probably very similar to you and I, whether they want to admit it or not, because we get sucked into things. Nobody's sitting there going, man, I really want to be overweight.
Yeah.
I really want it to be hard for me to tie my shoes.
Yeah.
I want to be out of breath walking to go play with my kids. Nobody thinks that, but it's a casual little creep. They let that complacency creep in, and that complacency is going to kill.
Yeah.
And you have to go to war with that complacency every day.
Yeah.
So.
No, I feel that. Yeah. Thankfully, I've never really had a problem with porn.
Yeah.
It got me a handful of times in college. Sorry, I was looking at Colt.
That was amazing. I was like, does he realize that he sent the joke, or am I the only one that got onto that one? I'm like, he's a really good comedian.
No,
he's smart, so I think that was calculated.
No, but for real, in college, like there was this like moment. I'd gone to this one particular church, which I respect, and I ended up going to a different church. Not because I didn't like this first one, but one of the things the pastor said at one time that I remembered forever was that they don't let people who consistently watch porn do anything in children's ministry, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And I would agree with.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh, damn, that's what y'all associate those two things with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and anyway, just hearing him say that, and which, like I said, I was thankful I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But it made me just like so scared of like what that path could lead to. That to me,
yes,
that hearing that pastor say that behind that pulpit at that time is the one statement that's kept me from going down that path again, because I do have that type of personality, knowing the way I treat food and some of the other things in my life. But when he said that, it resonated with me on a level that very few other things in my life have resonated with me on.
It's the same, like I never heard somebody say that, but I've heard that said a different way before. And you think about it, and one of my buddy Matt Russell, who started Walking in Truth Ministries, he always, because one of the things that is we're working through with these men is porn, and just, getting rid of that exposure and that addiction to it. And he goes, hey, not everybody that watches porn is, associated with human trafficking, but everyone that human traffics is associated with porn.
Damn right. That is
and
a really
he
good
said
point.
That, and I was just like just nauseous.
That is a really good point,
because of just the thought of how many lives have been ruined over that.
No kidding.
And our son is 18. I get emotional thinking about this because our son is 18 and we have twin daughters that are 12. And if anybody was to ever hurt my kids, I'm ending bloodlines.
Right.
Like scorched earth. You know what I mean? Like you don't no. And it terrifies me at times, but then I also have to realize, like, okay, I can't allow the spirit of fear to creep in. I can pray over my kids. I can pray with my kids. I can educate my kids. And we've had to have hard, awkward conversations with our kids because it's like, hey, you guys are going to be starting to be exposed to these things.
You're going to be exposed to a lot.
And so I would rather them learn it from my wife and I than somebody else.
100%.
And you had those conversations. And that was one of the things, like I was talking with Aiden one time, I was like, hey man, he was like, here's the associations and here's the open doors that you'll have. And it's like, it's a casual creep. And he's such a good kid. He's like, I don't do that. He goes, I don't do that because I know it's a sin. And he's just like cool. So
that's good.
Anyways.
Well, we touched on it before the rain kind of interrupted our podcast, but we were getting into your first deployment. So you got into the SEAL teams. You were in boot camp during 9/11.
I went into boot camp September 5th, 2001.
Yeah, so 6 days later
9/11 happens.
Man, I bet y'all were freaking out in boot camp.
It was pretty crazy. I remember the senior chief walking in, literally door slings open. He walks in, we're all standing at attention, and he says, our nation's been attacked. We might be going to war, and then left. And everyone kind of was like looking around like, is this a drill?
Yeah.
Is this part of like the boot camp game?
Right.
But I remember standing there. I was like the first person that saw him. And I just remember the look on his face of just terror. Not terror like he was afraid in a coward's way.
But it wasn't a training.
It was not training. It was very clear that this was not training. And I just remember sitting there going, this is real.
Dang.
Like this is real now. Now I had a contract to go try to become a Navy SEAL, and it all became very real from that point. And, I was already taking things serious, but it was safe to say I was able to take things much more serious. Much more serious.
To have been a different tempo.
100%.
After that day in training. There's just no way.
Yeah.
I'm sure and now
for
everyone.
Exactly, for everybody in boot camp. And they changed the way they did their training. And it revamped all the training that we had in the SEAL teams. Because even when I was getting into the SEAL teams, they were revamping and changing everything.
Because wars are fought differently.
Yep.
Yeah, they evolve. And they're so now you guys are fighting a war that nobody ever fought before. Yeah. And so they had to change things.
Yeah. I mean, most of the instructors in the SEAL teams, when I went in, had been taught from the Vietnam era SEALs,
right?
Which were legends in our community. Yeah. But they're teaching what they did in Vietnam, and there were some adaptations to what they taught because as SEALs, the current day SEALs, it's maritime operations, so we're doing gas and oil platform takedowns, shipboardings. There's a little urban warfare, but not a lot.
Shipboardings in Iraq.
Not in an urban environment. We're not doing that in Baghdad.
Yeah, in Ramadi.
Definitely weren't doing that in Ramadi. And so things evolved. My first platoon, we did a whole workup to go to Iraq. Like, hey, we're going to go overseas and we're doing these capture kill missions. That's what we're going to do. Our whole workup was capture kill, capture kill, capture kill, capture kill training. 5 weeks before we deployed, they're like, hey, you guys are now taking over the personal security detail mission. You're going to be protecting the elected officials of Iraq during their election time frame.
So, but I mean, obviously you eventually use the capture kill type stuff, but
yeah, I do. Yeah.
But tell me about, so your first deployment, and now you're security detail for these higher ups in Iraq. Like, how
Nobody
was there
happy.
any excitement? Nothing's happening.
Well, no, there was stuff happening. I mean, we're keeping these guys safe. We're driving them to all their meetings. We're protecting their houses, their offices, their meetings. You know, we protected the vice president of Iraq. My platoon did. And
yeah, they can't just have just anybody.
They
can't have Dale Brisby with a revolver protecting this guy. You know, they got it. So they call him.
It would probably be preferred to have SEALs over Dale with a revolver. Right. However, you'd probably get the job done.
So
this guy liked to travel. He was from northern Iraq, up in Kurdistan area near the border, had a bunch of property up there. Like, I mean, it was beautiful up there in northern Iraq. I mean, I remember flying up there in the helicopter. So there was a cool aspect. You know, we're in civilian clothes with low vis body armor, you know, wearing suits and button ups and, you know, with the little earpiece radios, and you have like your rifle and your pistol, and that's it. And we're driving fully armored SUVs, and you know, everywhere we'd go, like we have the, you know, we're driving in a convoy, and, you know, it was cool. There was that cool factor. And then, you know, you're driving up onto helicopters with the vehicles, and then wherever he wanted to fly, we'd fly, and he wanted to go up there. And so we'd go up there, we'd land, you know, and we'd bring him to his house or to the meetings that he was having with different people. And we were always there to keep him safe.
Was there any action attached to that?
You know, so there was some assassination and kidnapping attempts all throughout the whole group. My group never really dealt with that much. Now our team also did really good advons, you know, so we have an advance party that would go and check things and set stuff up and check the routes. And, you know, I think our advon did such a good job. It legitimately mitigated the attacks and the attempts that we had on our guy. Now, we were hyper focused because of this guy's threat, because he had already had assassination attempts on him and his family. And I believe his wife had been attacked by Saddam's #1 assassin that he was using for years with a hatchet. And so, I mean, there was a, you know, previous attacks that were pretty bad on the people that we were protecting. But on that deployment, myself and a few other guys got to do a really cool mission where we actually did an HVT snatch, high value target, and it was Saddam's #1 assassin that we went to go take down. And the CIA had been getting him for a long time. He had killed multiple people that tried to get him and roll
so
him
Saddam,
up.
He was hired by Saddam.
He was Saddam's #1 assassin for years. And the CIA had been trying to get him for a while. And I remember we went into this briefing of like, hey, we're going to go to an HVT. That's it. We're like, cool. Where are we going? Can't tell you. Okay. Who are we getting? Can't tell you. When do we leave? Can't tell you. Okay. They're like, just be ready to go. When we call you, we're going to need to load helicopter. You'll get your.
Who is this telling you they can't tell you?
Our leadership.
Gotcha.
From the SEAL team, because they had been getting this intel, this brief, and this mission working directly with the CIA. And some other, you know, obviously some Army officials and Marine Corps officials that were over there that owned the battle space. It was a very highly coordinated thing that they've been trying to get for a while. And I just remember myself and these other guys going, okay, like we had our basic loadout, and it's like, well, maybe I need this, and maybe I'll pack this. You know, and then also now you're like putting on all this extra gear, and then you're like, all right, I'm not able to be, you know, as agile as I need to be. And so then you're like changing out your gear, and it's like, all right, let's just go back to like what we trained in and maybe add in a few extra things. And so we fly from Baghdad, and we're flying up north. We stop at a base to refuel. And while we're there, we meet with a source, and this guy's fully balaclava masked up, like telling us about this guy. He's going to be the guy that identified him. And he's like, I can't be identified because he'll kill my whole family. Like if he sees that I'm identifying you guys and he gets away, my whole family dies. Wow. And so he's like masked up, like not talking, like more than he needs to give us information. And I mean, it was I was like, all right, cool. What's the deals with this guy? And they're like, you know, giving us his stats. I mean, he's, you know, 6'2", 6'3", 6'4"-ish, you know, like 250 to 260 range. Like this guy is a big dude, and we're like, okay, cool. Like, and they're like, where's he at? And they're like, well, currently he's being held on the border of Turkey and Iraq. He's being held there. They don't want him. They want to like release him, but we're going to release him back into Iraq So you guys need to go stage at the base of this bridge. And when he comes up over the bridge, that's where you guys are going to get him. So we had him to where he's coming across the choke point where we were able to control it. Middle of the day, there's cars and people all over the place. They're going through the military checkpoint. And I just remember like, okay, so we like studied the picture and this guy's like, I'm going to be the one to identify him. So we're like, all right, so we land, we do a bunch of like false landings and takeoffs with the helicopters and all over that area. So, you know, cause we know he's on the other side. And we also know that the Iraqi soldiers are super corrupt for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all like giving information
off,
and tipping it off and getting payouts and everything else like that. And so we're sitting there and I just remember hearing on the radio, we've got visibility. And I was like, oh my dude, this is real now. Yeah. And I'll never forget. Like I was in this little guard shack hiding.
This isn't your first firefight though, right? At this point?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, because we had been doing security where nothing had really kicked off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
And and so this is like, okay. And he comes up over the crest of the bridge and he gets confirmed. And, you know, this guy is just walking and,
oh, he wasn't in a car.
No. He was in a car. So they released him and he had to walk over the bridge.
Oh, y'all are that tight to the border.
We are on the border of Iraq and Turkey. He had been, excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh, thank you. He had been detained there and they knew who he was. And they're like, we don't want this guy. We don't want to deal with this.
Yeah, I mean, the repercussions.
He had killed multiple people that had rolled him up before in the past. Like CIA tried to grab him. He had killed a lot of people. This guy was so evil. He would use women to lure his targets back to a room. And then he'd be in the room. He would kill both of those people because he couldn't let the woman go to tell. Dang. And he would cut up their bodies and leave them in bathtubs. Damn. I mean, this guy was an evil, demonic human.
Wow.
I mean, demon possessed. Like, I mean, it was horrific. Things that this guy did.
I'm sure it's stuff you probably can't even or don't want to share.
This is what I can share. And also, like, honestly, I don't want people to hear some of the other stuff because, you know, those words become thoughts and I don't want people thinking about that.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
It's just one of those things. You know, my wife sometimes is like, you don't tell me everything. And I'm like, there's a reason.
There's just no reason to. Yeah.
There's no reason. You know, it's like watching horror movies. Why? That's the demonic thoughts. Like you don't need to watch. Like,
yeah, it's not going to benefit you.
Yeah.
So, right.
You know, and so anyway, so I just remember them telling us all this stuff, and I was like, I mean, okay, this is gonna be like spiritual warfare. Like this is gonna be crazy, man.
Thanks.
And so, anyways, he's come up over the bridge. He gets closer, and I just remember looking at my buddy across the way, and we have our rifles out, and we're ready, and we're like, all right, we gotta let him get close enough, but not too close where he can get through, but not to where he can run away. And we're like kind of looking at each other. We're looking, and you know, like guys are doing their normal checkpoints, and the guys like went up and they're like, oh, cool. Yep. You can come through. Like they're just acting like, hey, we don't know who you are. You can come through so that they can have somebody on the backside to stop him.
For sure.
And I just remember looking at him and we both did the nod. We did our barrel waves and we went out. And I just remember just everything was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Just everything slowed down. And it was like, I get the goosebumps thinking about it because I'm sure it's probably similar. Like when you get on, you know, a bull or a bronc and you're sitting there and it starts moving. It just
feels like an eternity for a sec, you know, like.
And you're like, is this gate going to open?
Yeah.
I can't relate to that, but I'm willing to bet like it's similar because the way God designed our bodies to react to these stressful situations.
The stakes are a little lower for us. But thank you for making the connection.
I don't know. You could argue that.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like these bulls might pull a knife, but they won't.
I would rather get in a gunfight with my kid on and my guys than go jump on a bull.
Yeah.
But I do want to jump on a bull one day or a bronc because I think that would just be awesome. But, you know, so it's all relative.
Yeah, you're in that moment.
It's all relative. If I was like, hey, man, we're going to roll up some cartel guys.
Yeah.
I could call buddies that are like, dude, where am I meeting you? And you'd be like, so are we sure about this? What do we got to do? And I'd be like, no, you're going to be good. This is all we're going to do. You're just going to go do this. And you're like, I don't feel I'm super comfortable and qualified for this. Like if I just called you up and like, hey, man, I need you to help me go roll up some cartel guys. You'd probably be like,
Or maybe I scare you with how falsely confident I am. No. You're going to want to hold your gun like this.
No. Turn it around.
I got it.
No. No. Turn it around.
You guys follow my lead.
Hey, your magazine's backwards. That's why I won't go in the gun right now.
Something's wrong with this gun.
So I love it when I teach shooting. People get so stressed out. They'll put the magazine wrong. They're like, this gun's not working. I'm like, well, the magazine's wrong way.
Well, I'm just used to it different.
Yeah.
Caliber.
I'm used to the rounds facing me that go into the gun. So
used to the M7. This is an M4. So you walk.
So anyway, so we do the nod. We go out and it's like guns, and then we close the distance fast, and we go up on them, and we're immediately like getting front side, and we have
it's called an L ambush, Cole.
My man, it is. So we immediately set up that L ambush, and we're getting him to like turn around, kind of lift up his shirt. We're like checking to make sure he doesn't have anything on him. And I was going to be the prisoner handler, which is comical for how big this guy is.
Oh, dang. So it's not just y'all just shoot him and you're done with it.
No.
Oh, man. This is worse.
Yes.
We got to take him alive.
No, because I would have just
thinking like
I would have just
two
shot
in the
him.
chest and one in the head.
No, I would have just shot him from concealment and been like, cool, 3 to 5 rounds in the face. We're good.
Yeah.
No, we have to get this guy alive so that he can be interrogated.
Whew. Yeah, which would probably be better. I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
So how does it go down?
It worked out for us well as a nation. Okay, so set it up. We turn him around, and we're talking to him, and he is just like growling at us.
Oh man!
And I'm like that's a demon. That's a demon. And so he we get him to the point where he turns around, and my buddies for a while they were joking. They called me like the flying squirrel because as he turned around, I had to run, jump, and then get that rear naked into him. The rear naked choke.
Oh, he turned around without y'all's.
No, we made him. No. We made that's part of the prisoner handling. Well, he wouldn't put his hands behind his back, and he wasn't complying. And he was turned around. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, now we'll escalate. And so I jump up onto this guy, start choking him out, rip him back, and I'm punching him in the face because now he's starting to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm punching him in the face, choking him, punching him, choking him, punching him. And I mean, this guy he is big and strong, man.
Really?
Immediately, my other buddy jumps, controlling his hips. Other guy's controlling his legs. We're trying to zip tie his feet together. And he's like, I am going to kill all of your families. He's like, I'm going to kill every single one of them. I just started laughing. I was like, bro, you ain't doing shit now, man.
Yeah.
Excuse my language for the viewers,
but
all right. I don't know what your rating is. You can edit that out if you need. Yeah. But I'm just like, you're not doing anything now, man. But he was also fighting to get to his waistband. And so we're trying to control his hands. And what he had on him was a punch spike that stabs through body armor.
Golly.
Yeah. And he had that on him and that he was trying to get. And so we have to tune him up because he's fighting back pretty bad. We get him to the point where it's like, all right, we just torquing his arms behind his back. We have him face down. My knee is on his back of his head, full kit, all my gear, back of the neck, pushing that in there. And we're moving his arms around and he's still talking. He's like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to murder your family.
In English.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Spoke multiple languages. We zip tie his hands together, zip tie his hands to his belt, zip tie his feet together. We took possession of somebody's pickup truck on the bridge and got them out.
Like in the movies, get out. I need your car.
Well, everyone saw what was happening and they're up in that area. They're super peaceful. The Kurds hated Saddam because he just straight massacred them.
Right.
So Saddam used to, there's a book called Saddam's Secrets written by George Sada. It is disgusting what Saddam used to do and what he did to the Kurds. The Kurds hate that region of people because he used to take them up in helicopters and the games that he would play was throwing live Kurds that he didn't like that pushed back on his stuff out of a helicopter trying to let them land on spikes of fences and big poles or whatever. It was like a game to him and it was pretty bad. And so the Kurds were they knew what we were doing. They knew who the Americans were. Yeah.
Take my truck.
Yeah. There you go, buddy. And so, I mean, obviously we're going to get it back to the guy. And so we have our CIA source. We have the guy that identified him talking to this guy hey, we just need to get him out to this field because we called in the helicopters because, I mean, everything was very dynamic. We had the helicopters on the other side of the ridge line, hovering, waiting for this to go down because as soon as we grabbed them, they had to come up and over. We had to get them up in there and get out of there. So we do that. We get them up, get them out to this field. Helicopters come in, we load them up, and we're like, and he's still like, I'm going to kill you guys. We're like, all right, dude, and we're bringing him up on the helicopter, and, like the helicopter crew is like, these guys are like, who is this guy? Like,
yeah,
why? Like, cause they don't know anything, obviously. And, so we bring him back to base, and like, nobody's talking. Cause the whole part of it was like, hey, no talking. Like, cause I don't want to be like, hey, Dale, can you hand me that? Cause
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we had no name tapes. We had nothing. Our camis were slick. Like there's nothing, no identifying anything anywhere, no patches. And we get him back to the base that we're dropping him off. And I remember when we're getting there, like these Marines that were taking him, their police, this guy was like, who is this guy? And I'm like, why? What's up? We're playing all dumb. Like, I don't know. And they're like, they had to, like, they call it sanitize, like buildings that he was going to be holding into, meaning there couldn't be pencils, there couldn't be paper clips, there could be nothing in these rooms, nothing. And there was multiple rooms deep that had to be cleaned for them to go hold this guy. Wow. Because he, again, had been detained before, and he'd killed people and gotten out, and like no pins, no, like nothing. And so it was pretty crazy being able to do that as a new guy on my first deployment. But so the rest of it was,
what came of him?
I have no idea.
Really?
No idea. From that point, like we literally never heard anything from it. So usually when you do stuff like that, the military, you'll get like an award for that. But because for a very long time, it was, dude, we got a handshake and a coin from the CIA afterwards. And they're like, hey, thanks. Appreciate you guys. We're like, thank you.
Yeah.
But you don't do that stuff for awards.
Right,
like,
right.
I didn't want an award. I didn't need an award. The only reason I said that is like
part of it.
For a long time, it was like, hey guys, like you can't even talk about this, you know? But yeah, it was pretty rad being able to do that. And it was cool being able to, work with the other branches of the military in a dynamic situation and operation, and just see how professional these soldiers and Marines were.
That's wild that was like your first interaction.
Yep. Yeah.
So what was the second one like? Did it slow down for you?
So didn't have any interactions like that for the rest of the deployment because we're doing security, right?
You went back to security.
You went straight back to it. That was literally like
you took your kit off, put the suit back on.
So our guys, we would do security in rotations, and we got called on it because we weren't out of town with the guy at the time. We were literally just hanging out in Baghdad. And we get called, we get
right
tasked,
place at the right time.
And it was, 100% right place at the right time. And it was cool. It was a good experience. And I mean, you definitely come back from something like that. You're like, I need to take my training more serious. And I already had, like, I took my training very serious, but then you think about things, you're like, man, I got to tweak my gear a little bit.
If this had gone wrong, if he got a hold of that.
Yeah, if he would have gotten a hold of that, what would I have done? And, all those things. And so it definitely changed, because my first platoon, I was 155, 160 pounds. And I was like, man, I need to put on some muscle mass. I need to get stronger. I need to be faster. I need to be more proficient at what I do. Like, this is not an environment for me just to get along and go through the motions.
So what's the second one like with Jocko? So
come back from that deployment, Jocko comes in as our task unit commander, and the introduction to working for Jocko was incredible. Well, first off, now Seth Stone is our officer in charge of Delta Platoon. I find out that Leif Babin's coming from SEAL Team 5 to SEAL Team 3, and I'm like, yes, like Leif Babin and Seth Stone were, and Andrew Paul, who also works for us at Echelon Front, but, Leif and Seth were the two primary leaders of Task Unit Bravo, which became Task Unit Bruiser when Jocko took over and changed her name. But Leif came over, and he was the officer in charge of Charlie Platoon. Chris Kyle was his point man and lead sniper in Charlie Platoon. Seth Stone was the OIC of Delta Platoon, and I was a point man and lead sniper in Delta Platoon. So I was Chris's counterpart. So if you've read Chris's book or watched the movie, remember when they were teasing him about the young sniper catching up to him? Yeah. That was me when I was 23. Gotcha. And again, right place, right time, just grace of God being able to do my job with the team. It wasn't just us doing our things as sniper.
But both of y'all were in Ramadi.
Oh, yeah. All of us were in Ramadi together. So Jocko comes in as our task unit commander, and you heard about Jocko, and you're like, all right, this guy has a really good reputation. He was a black belt in jiu-jitsu, was a big, muscular, athletic guy, prior enlisted, became an officer so that he could lead in the SEAL teams at a higher level, was always early to meetings, always had a notepad, taking notes, listening when you were talking, listening with intent. Like if you work for Jocko and you're having a conversation with them, he's not like, he's like, okay. And then he'll pause, he'll process, and then give you feedback and answer, or, okay, let me know what I can do for you. Yeah. Like he was super, and he still is, very intentional. And when he first started doing that in our tasking, I was like, this is different. This is definitely different.
Yeah, this guy's unique.
Yeah, I had never had a leader at that high level pour into listening at that and actually want to hear what I had to say. And so it was cool and refreshing to have that.
I mean, I don't know the guy, so I'm just assuming, but it seems like, I mean, like, was he humble for what he
very
was?
Humble,
seems
very
like?
humble, very humble.
I'm just assuming.
Very humble. And he was very intentional. Sorry. He was very intentional with empowering all of us to be able to take ownership, to step up, and to lead. Yeah. I mean, I was one of our youngest guys and most junior ranking guys, and he pulled me aside out in the desert one day and was like, hey, I need your help. And I'm like, okay, what do you need from me? He's like, I need you to be more aggressive with your leadership. I need you to be my go-to guy. I need you to put your name on your helmet when you get back so I can find you. I can scan, I can look around. Seth and I can find you. Benny can find you so that we can task you with problems. And if you see something that needs to be fixed, I need you to step up and fix those problems. I need you to help me and Seth. Can you do that? And I'm like, yes. I'm 22 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And now this guy who has a great reputation, a phenomenal leader, is like, I need your help. I'm like,
wow, I'm
bought in. And that's what good leaders do, is they empower their people. So I've known Jocko since 2005, almost 20 years. I was a 22-year-old SEAL, meaning I was a knucklehead. I did a lot of stupid stuff. Then we go to war, we go to training command. I work for him as an instructor. I have a good run there, but I make some mistakes there. I do some stuff. And, all the time. So that's a long time to know somebody, 19 years. How many times total out of all those 19 years do you think Jocko's ever actually had to really get on to me and yell at me to get my attention and or fix a problem total?
I would seems like a bunch.
Zero, man. You know how many opportunities I gave him?
Oh man.
Can't count that.
So just to speak to how he is.
Yep. Same with Leif.
How mature he is.
Same with Leif. You know how many times Leif could have been like, JP, what in the, you know what I mean?
Right.
You know how many times? Zero. You know how many times Seth did it? Zero.
Just that because they've got the big picture down.
And that's, yes, because Leif and Seth were both older, more mature, had time in the regular fleet Navy before they came there, but they were also very intentional about learning how to be good leaders from Jocko. Jocko was a great leader. He had a great reputation. I mean, Jocko was, when he was an enlisted guy, he was junior sailor of the quarter, junior sailor of the year. He gets commissioned to where they're like, oh, you're such a good enlisted SEAL. We're going to continue paying you your Navy SEAL pay while you go to college to get your degree. We're going to make you an officer. He goes through that, graduates at the top, is an officer, gets really good early promotion status, all these early promotions, all these like write-ups and awards and everything, gets selected to be the admiral's aide.
Yeah.
Do you think a turd is going to be working for the admiral?
Yeah. No kidding.
No. They're literally picking the best SEAL officer out there to literally shadow and escort the admiral of the SEAL teams.
Wow.
So that's the leader that they were like, oh, we get to learn from this guy. And that's what Leif and Seth, were great at was, okay, hey, we're going to learn from Jocko, but we're going to be our own individual leaders. And Jocko was really good at empowering us. And so because he told us the truth, he always told us the truth. He never hid the truth from us. Hey guys, what we're going to be going up against in Ramadi is unlike anything we've ever seen before.
So tell me about going through some of these books, Extreme Ownership being one of them, Chris's book, Marcus. It seems like Ramadi was pretty intense.
It was.
So you went from very little action in your first deployment.
Yeah.
Tell me about just the atmosphere of Ramadi.
When I said earlier, Jocko told us it was unlike any combat we'd ever seen or the SEAL teams had seen, that was a factual statement.
Yeah. And how
we hadn't seen. well, we hadn't, like, nobody had been in an environment where there is so much sustained enemy gunfights and enemy fighters since Vietnam. Ramadi, at the time, they said there was between 4,000 to 5,000 enemy fighters in that region. Wow. It was completely overrun and controlled by the enemy fighters. When we showed up there, they were flying their flag above the Capitol building. They had complete control. And we knew that the Iraqi soldiers there were, some of them were trying, most of them were corrupt. They were being paid off. They were part of, these organizations. And so, I mean, it was so bad when we showed up to Ramadi, there's a unit, a National Guard unit, the 228, they're a National Guard unit out of Pennsylvania. And when we showed up, they had been there for 14 months and they had been in combat every single day for 14 months straight. That's how bad it was. This wasn't we're just, we're on base. We'll go out, do some missions and come back. Like every single day they're being attacked. Their bases are being attacked. Their outstations are being attacked. Their checkpoints are being attacked. There's a road called Route Michigan that connected the western to the eastern side of Ramadi. So you had the big base, Camp Ramadi. You had Ramadi, the neighborhood. And then on the eastern side, you had a forward operating base called Camp Corregidor. Myself, Seth, and an interpreter and like 4 other SEALs ended up out there from the very beginning, working with the Marine Corps unit and an Army unit out there. And that forward operating base every single day was attacked by small arms fires, RPGs, snipers, mortars, machine gun fire. You couldn't walk. Like if we were to walk from this building to that building right over there, you had to have all your gear on. Body armor, helmet, weapon, locked and loaded, like frag grenades on you, smokes. Like you didn't walk around base just like, I'm going to go get some food in my flip-flops and shorts. Like,
oh, you mean on the base?
We're on the base. We're on the forward operating base. That's how much it was attacked. There's times we'd be walking the chow hall and that forward operating base would start getting attacked and you have to go get up in a tower we would literally go up to the rooftop of the building that we slept in and actually be able to shoot enemy fighters trying to attack us. Like it was crazy. And we'd go out on an operation. You start your watch. So that's the 12 environment minutes, you're in a gunfight.
Where you and Chris are competing for kills, number of kills.
Yeah, competing.
Not that you were competing. I'm just saying. No,
yes,
not
I get
that
what
you
you're
guys
saying.
were competing. I'm just saying like that's where like if there was a competition, if there whatever.
Yes,
like I'm just saying that
you
guys were both getting a lot, like seeing a lot of action.
Yes, 100%. And they're all of our guys. I mean, there is guys
everybody.
like it.
That's the environment that y'all were referencing in the movie.
Yes.
Is what I'm getting at.
So in our task unit, everybody was in multiple gunfights. There's not one person. So guys will go on deployment sometimes and they'll go do an op and a couple guys might get to pull the trigger and they're like, bro.
Yeah, this happened.
That was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I mean, we went through hundreds of thousands of rounds as a task unit. I was a sniper, but I was also a machine gunner. On one of our very first big clearance missions that we were doing in Ramadi, I was carrying the Mark 46, which is a belt-fed machine gun, 5.56 is the round. The box of rounds the box of ammo carries 200 rounds. So you have 200 rounds in the gun. I had another 600 on my body. So that's 800 rounds. And then I had another 400 in my backpack. So 2 more boxes, 1,200 rounds. Go out there on this clearance. It's just a 4-hour push clearance. We're doing these cycle rotations of clearance. Next group comes in and we're just trying to get a little foothold, just trying to clear out an area so that we can start building these combat outposts so that these Army engineers and the Navy Seabees could come in and build out these combat outposts, which is a centralized location for us to plant our flag as Americans, to provide support to the innocent Iraqis that were stuck there, and to show the enemy fighters, hey, we're not leaving. Mm-hmm. It basically is like, hey, you have a really bad neighborhood? Cool. We're going to put these little pop-up police stations all throughout the place so that we can patrol it. We can monitor it. We can make sure we can work with the community and build really good relationships. And eventually, those criminals leave because that sucks for them.
Yeah.
So we were doing that and we're going out and hunting them. Yeah. So we're like, cool. And instead of you attacking us, we're going to hunt you. And we hunted the enemy fighters every single day while building relationships with the local populace. And the relationships that we had with the soldiers and the Marines that we worked with were incredible. Yeah. One of the first things that we did is a group of Marines had been ambushed and killed before we showed up, like literally the day before we showed up. they had a memorial service like the next day when we were there. We went to that. It was for 13 Marines. Wow. And we're like instantly just trying to build relationships with these Marines and soldiers.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were in constant gunfights and just pushing through the city.
So
when I came back from that very first 4-hour push, I had less than 100 rounds on my gun left. Dang. And my whole body. Like went through all those rounds because it was nonstop sustained urban warfare, fighting legitimately from building to building, alleyway to alleyway.
Wow.
And the Army was awesome. They're like, hey, here's our plan. We need help. Do you guys want to get in the fight? And we're like, yes, because our leadership focused immediately on building relationships. Jocko, Leif, and Seth went up to these leaders and like, hey, what can we do to help you guys? We have snipers, we have machine gunners, we're gunfighters. We can do whatever you guys need for help. What do you guys need from us? Yeah. And they said, hey, this is what we need. Can you guys do it? We said yes. And our leadership came to us and said, hey guys, this is what we're doing. This is why. How do you guys want to get the job done?
Yeah.
So again, immediately in that environment, could Jocko have said, hey guys, this is what we're doing. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. This is how you guys are going to get it done. And, you know, most people are like, oh yeah, that's a really good military leader. That's actually a bad leader.
Yeah.
Because you're dictating everything. Instead, Jocko used decentralized command, which is what we teach at Echelon Front is, you know, that's one of our laws of combat. And Jocko's sitting there saying, hey guys, this is what we have going on. Here's why we need to do it. How do you guys want to get the job done?
Yeah.
And it was crazy because he empowered us. And because he empowered us and gave us ownership, it allowed us to think and work through all these problems. And at the end of our deployment, it was a completely just drastic night and day environment there.
So was it that deployment where the story of Mike Mansour unfolded?
Yep. September 29th, 2006. We were packed up. It was very end of our deployment, you know, ready to go home. And Army requests some additional sniper support. So they needed some additional overwatch positions. We sent 2 small elements down into the Malab district, which was a very dangerous area. Sent two teams down to the Malab district to set up mutually overlapping fields of fire overwatches for the sector that they were clearing through. They engaged multiple enemy fighters throughout the day. One of the guys gets close enough to the building undetected, throws a grenade up on the rooftop. It hits Mikey in the chest, bounces in front of him. And instead of him jumping back to avoid the blast or, you know, trying to just run away from it, he jumped on top of it without hesitation.
Who was in front of him? Who was with him?
No, he had 2 guys right next to him.
Right.
And so he jumped on that grenade without hesitation because of those 2 guys on the rooftop. And he absorbed the majority of the blast and fought to stay alive for about 30 minutes. Those other guys got wrecked. I mean, not wrecked, but I mean, yeah, they got hit pretty hard by that grenade blast. But they're alive because Mikey jumped on that grenade and he absorbed the majority of the blast. And, you know, it's one of the things I try to think about when I'm working out. Like, hey, I've always got 30 minutes in me. And Mikey fought for about 30 minutes to stay alive, like legitimately fighting to stay alive. And, you know, that was one of the missions that I didn't go on, the only one on that deployment, because I had cut my finger down to the bone and they flew me out for an emergency surgery because they thought I was going to lose my finger. And so I had this surgery done. I'm back with the guys, and then that mission came about, and my platoon chief didn't let me go on that mission. And I should have fought harder. I should have pushed back. But, you know, we had done hundreds as a task unit, right, of those missions. And it was just like, he's like, hey man, like, dude, no, but I should have, because I was our lead sniper. I was our LPO for that group of that deployment. And, you know, I didn't, and I wasn't on that rooftop. And it's something I think about every day because I escorted Mikey's body home. And, you know, it's a humbling thing to sit next to one of your best friends with an American flag draped over their casket, knowing that you're bringing them home to their family. And, you know, I think about it every day. You know, this scar is a nice reminder that the scar tissue that you would think would be gone by now from the constant rubbing. Nope. It's like, it's there. And it's, you know, I'm glad because it's a reminder to not waste the gift that we've been given. You know, God's given us this gift, this extra time. And, you know, it's something that I try to be intentional with and not let complacency creep in, because I have, you know, I ruined my marriage, and we can talk about that another time. My wife and I were divorced for a year, and I read Extreme Ownership, and I was like, oh, idiot, you know these principles. When you used them, you were very successful in the military and in business, but you never used them in your marriage. Yeah. And my family fell apart. And by the grace of God, after I read Extreme Ownership, you know, I had a second chance. I got my wife back. I got my family back. We were divorced, and we got remarried about a year later, from when we tried to start working on it. And so for me, it's a reminder of, you know, when, you know, we lost Mark Lee, who was in Charlie Platoon. He was the first Navy SEAL killed in Iraq on August 2nd, 2006. Ryan Jobe was wounded on August 2nd, 2006, shot in the face by an enemy sniper, pulled out of country for surgery, recovery, and rehab, blinded, you know, from the swelling and the fragment, from all the surgeries, from the swelling and the fragment, ends up losing his sense of smell and his sense of taste as well. Doesn't complain ever to anybody about that. Living his life, gets his business degree with a 4.0 GPA, summits Mount Rainier, you know, just an incredible human, goes in for a surgery, his 22nd surgery on the week that him and his wife found out they're expecting a baby girl, and dies due to complications afterwards, like after surgery dies, you know. And, you know, Mark, you know, he laid down his life for his teammates. He was laying down cover fire so his wounded teammates could be pulled to safety. Mm-hmm. And he was shot and killed before he could move. You know, Seth Stone, which was horrible, you know, was killed in a training accident. I was talking to him that morning. We were literally sending each other messages, and I knew he was going up for a base jump out of a hot air balloon. And I was like, hey man, just hit me up afterwards. And don't hear anything. I'm with my daughters, I'm doing my thing. And then I get a phone call from Leif, and he was like, hey brother, you know, I answer the phone all excited to talk to Leif. And he's like, hey man. And I was like, damn, I know what that means. I've heard that hey man too many times. My, you know, roommate, Derek Benson, that I was talking about, was on the helicopter for Extortion 17. Dang. So I lost Derek, JT, and Aaron on that. Aaron and I were best friends that worked at the training cell together. JT, just a really good close friend in the SEAL teams. We trained together to prepare to go to that command that those guys were at. You know, Derek Benson was my roommate, my best friend. Like, I was supposed to go to that squadron if I would have made it through that selection training, like to be with Derek and Aaron and JT. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I got pulled from that training because of an injury, because I had to have surgery. And again, it's another thing that I think about, and it just bothers me. You know, Brad Kavner, my other roommate, 5 combat deployments, comes back from like a crazy deployment to Afghanistan. And, you know, the Navy's like, hey, we got to send somebody to these schools. Like, we have to send people to the command. And they're like, dude, we just got back from 9 months in Afghanistan, like 1 MRE a day type of situation. And Brad, being the guy that he was and the leader that he was, he goes, I'll go. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I live close to my parents here in Coronado. Let all these guys go on leave. I'll go to that school. So he goes to that school, static line jump master training school, to where you learn how to spot for guys to be able to jump out of airplanes. His reserve malfunctioned in the plane. The door was open, sucked his reserve out, ripped him out of the plane, broke his neck, and he burned in. Dang. And you know what's bullcrap about that? It was a known malfunction that the Navy knew that had been happening for a while, and nothing was done about it. And they made him go to that because they're like, we need people to go to this school. He just came back from his 5th combat deployment. Wow. So, you know, my buddy Scott Stout that I went through training with died of brain cancer a couple years ago. You know, Chuck Keating, like, literally ran into enemy fire with a smile on his face, killing enemy fighters because everyone was trying to flee. And he's like, nope, we're headed in, right? And gets killed. And so
they call him C4.
Yeah. You know, Chris Kyle gets murdered. Yeah. You know, so for me, it's a reminder that I have to live my life worthy of their sacrifice. Like, I have to live my life to honor them, to honor him first, and to honor them with my actions. And that's what we do at Echelon Front, is we live our lives to honor these guys by sharing the lessons that we learned. Because the lessons that we learned that they wrote about in Extreme Ownership, if you apply them, can change your life. It can fix any problem that you have in your life, any problem any of these guys have in their life. If we were to sit down and I just ask questions for 30 minutes, we would know what the problem was and we would have some solutions using the laws of combat and the mindsets for victory. And it's cool to see how that's evolved with what we've done at Echelon Front. And, I was the first instructor that they brought on board. 7.5 years ago, I was delivering pizzas to make ends meet, man, because I'd put myself in a bad situation financially. I had some handshake deals that I thought that's how you do business. And I failed to do a lot on my end, which caused things to kind of fall apart. And I put my family in a really hard position financially. And to make ends meet, I was going door to door, asking people if they needed their address spray painted on the curb so that first responders could easily identify it. I was delivering pizzas at night, and I was doing construction for my landlord to offset my rent. And I mean, there was a few times it was like, hey, honey, we have 17 cents in the account right now. How much gas do you have in your vehicle? How much do I have in mine? Right. And it's like, okay, hey, maybe we go over to your parents' house for dinner. And her parents are amazing humans. I love my in-laws. My in-laws I've been very blessed, with my in-laws. It's a second set of parents for me, for sure. I have great parents and I have great in-laws. I'm blessed. And they would have us over to eat knowing that we were tight on food, and then we would take the leftovers home and we'd eat the next day. And we'd use gift cards to Taco Bell that people gave us as gifts to go eat as a family. And I did that for a while. And I was, sighting in people's hunting rifles and trying to teach shooting when I could. And I was reaching out to Jocko saying, hey, is there anything I can do to help you? Anything I can do to help? And finally it came to the point where he's like, hey, I think we need to start expanding. We are at a point, Leif and I can't do all these gigs. And they brought me out to an event to see what they're doing. And they brought me on board as the first instructor. And which is something I didn't know is Seth knew that I was struggling.
Yeah.
And he reached out to Jocko and was like, hey, JP could use some help.
Yeah.
Can you help him for me? I never knew that.
Dang.
And it was God's hand, 100%, because we were drowning, but we hadn't drowned yet. I didn't know what was going to, it was, and no, it wasn't charity, right? Jocko said that. He goes, bro, he's like, let's be very clear. This has never been charity. You've earned everything that we gave you. He goes, I just wasn't aware you were dealing with these problems. He's like, I wish you would have said something. And I'm like, well, that's not your responsibility. It's mine to fix it. He goes, yeah, that's why you reach out and say, I'm struggling. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, valid point. But, our egos get in the way.
Yeah.
And also, this was my problem that I had created. And what was cool is during this time, it just shows my wife's heart and the amazing woman of God she is. We had been divorced, got back together, and then lost all the money. And guess what? She stuck through it. I don't know if she remembers this, but I remember one time I was super stressed out and I was like, I don't know. We don't have any money. Like, I'm thinking like, she's going to just be like, hey, I'm good. I'm out. I didn't sign up for this. Yeah. And she goes, I didn't marry your bank account.
Right.
I married you.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this. Yeah. And it doesn't seem like, I bet she doesn't remember saying that because it was just like a casual comment. And we had a lot of those conversations. But for me as a man to hear that from her, I was like,
hell yeah,
get to work.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. Like, I will work, when people are like, oh, you need sleep. I know, I get that. But there's a time
later.
to work.
Yeah, later.
Like when when you have 17 cents in your bank account,
that's not
sleep
the time
is
for
not
sleep.
The priority. Yeah. And I get it, stressful times. I want to sleep because it's easy to avoid. You just get to shut everything off. That's not what you do. You get to work. The Bible tells us not to be lazy, to work. God gives us these gifts and these abilities.
He created us to work.
100%. 100%. And it's an insult to our Creator when we're lazy.
Yeah.
It's an insult because you're like, oh, the way you designed me? No, I'm not going to operate that way. No, God created us to work. My dad is one of the hardest working humans I know. My mom, same way. In-laws, same way. My wife, same way. Like, the people I surround myself with are hard workers because that's who I want to be around. So I knew I had to get to work. So I'm getting to work, and Jocko gives me this opportunity to come to the event. I link up, talk with him and Leif, see what they're doing. I'm like, I'm all in. I mean, if you guys just see me carrying your bags like to events and learning, like I'm all in. And, Jocko had me on his podcast. That was the first time. Jocko podcast, episode 46, which is cool because I carried the Mark 46 machine gun.
Yeah.
And that was the first time. And then, that opened the door. And the opportunities that Jocko and Leif have given me has just been incredible. And now I'm our chief training officer. I run all of our hands-on scenario-based leadership training. So we do stress-induced training to reiterate the leadership principles that we teach. So we have these high-speed laser tag systems where, we have these individual events where individuals or small groups can sign up, or, I can come work with somebody's company and put their leaders through the training. And we run, we give this leadership structure, give an intel package, and then you're going to go plan a capture kill mission against my role players.
Dang.
And the missions are all designed specifically around the laws of combat that we teach, so that when we come back from the mission, you can sit down. I'm like, all right, hey Dale, what was your takeaway? Like, what did you learn from that? Not what you did. We're not teaching tactics. Like, we're not, you know what I mean? Like, we're not doing that. What did you learn? What did you learn from that run? Or what was your aha moment? Or what was brought to your attention that's a problem that you might do in your regular life? And you're sitting there and you're going, man, my guys had no idea what we needed to do because I wasn't clear with the plan. I didn't have them do a read back. We had no alignment. I failed to do my time management. I just was like, guys, we got to go, get your gear on. Let's go out there. And you know what? I actually do that at work because I get distracted. I lose track of time and I don't properly plan out my day. And what I realize is that with the people that I work for, instead of getting alignment by them repeating the plan back to me, I just say, hey, do you guys have any questions? And nobody asks questions. And I say, hey guys, does that make sense to you? And everyone says yes. And then we go out there and every time there's issues with it because they have questions and it doesn't make sense. And I did that on this mission. So you know what? I'm going to start implementing a read back. Every meeting, every conversation I have that has something important to do, I'm going to take an extra minute or even up to 10 minutes to get alignment so that I know my people know what they need to do so that they can go execute. Mm-hmm. And so that you learn these lessons real time. Like you can watch videos of jujitsu on your phone and be like, right. Oh, yeah, that's cool. But it's until we're out there training. Like you and I were training this morning and you did that. I'm like, no, bring your shin in. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
because you felt it.
Yeah.
When you felt that difference, you're like, cool, this makes sense to me. And then you repeat that and you repeat it and you repeat it. And it becomes muscle memory. Leadership is a skill set. There's not a lot of natural born leaders out there. Mm-hmm. But leadership is a skill set that we can work on. And that's what we teach at Echelon Front is how to implement these laws of combat and these minds of victory into everything that you have in your life. I use these principles to get my marriage back. I've used these principles to build out successful sales teams that went from going and doing around 22 million a month to 50 million a month in like an 11-month period without hiring one additional sales rep by just literally implementing these principles and letting my guys run and take ownership. Like the company I was working for that I was doing sales and I became a sales manager, all I did was just implement these principles and let these guys have ownership and control over their life. They were, and they still are, some of the best sales guys I know. And they were able to do that because instead of me micromanaging and dictating, I was like, cool, let me know what you guys need from me. Hey, this is our goals. This is what we got to hit. Let me know what I can do to support you. And just kept driving ownership. And it's the same thing that we do at Echelon Front. And now Cody Gandy, former Marine, squared away stud, when the attacks in Benghazi went down, his Marines were the first boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And so now he works for us at Echelon Front and he has taken over all that training. So now that he's the director of experiential leadership training, I'm elevated to the chief training officer. So now I have battlefield reviews, the council, FTXs, and any of our experiential leadership training and specific training for our first responders that fall under me. We call them roll calls. And like I have an event, the Echelon Front that we're doing on June 11th in the DFW area where it's primarily focused towards first responders. And they individuals or small groups or large groups can sign up. Like and you don't have to be a first responder. They can go to it, but it's geared towards first responders to where they're going to get their TCOL certification through the training. So it goes towards accredited training hours. And it's been cool. We didn't have any of that stuff at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, hey, we have training geared for first responders where you can get training credit hours towards your progression and your development. And so it's cool. We're doing that June 11th in DFW. And now I just get to be more up and out. Like instead of, like we were talking about that event that Cowboys doing for children in June, I'm like, hey, if you guys need help, if you need somebody taking out the trash, doing whatever, let me know. I'd love to come help because I can do those things now that I'm more strategic, more up and out and focused. Like, hey, let's build the program, empowering Cody and the rest of the instructors to run those things while I just maintain strategic alignment with Jocko, Leif, Dave, and Jamie, which, to be honest, that's one of my shortcomings. I struggle with the strategic vision and alignment because when I was in SEAL teams, I never really had to have that broad, big picture.
Yeah.
I was never in that position. I wasn't Jocko or Leif as the ops officer at a SEAL team. I was, hey, I'm in charge of the combative cell. I'm in charge of our marksmanship cell training. Hey, I went to my master chief one time. I was like, why don't we have an internal shooting program? Like, why do we only rely on civilian courses of instruction? Why do we not have constant?
That's wild to me.
Why do we not have constant shooting training in the SEAL teams?
Is it still that way?
No, because I asked that question and guess what my master chief said?
Good question.
Build it.
Yeah.
He goes, that's a good question. Build it. I'm like, what? He goes, build it. What do you need? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, well, let me know what you need. I'm like, okay. So I sat down and I'm like kind of thinking through some stuff. Again, that's what a good leader does.
At what point was this? When you
I was at TRADET at the training command as an instructor working for Jocko. So this is well after Ramadi, after my deployment to Afghanistan.
So like these SEALs are getting trained by, you're talking about like,
oh yeah,
like in the military.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting
we would go. Now here's the deal.
What kind of
these civilian shooting schools are the best in the world.
Right.
But hands down, I'm not discrediting them.
Neither would I.
But here's the deal. So in a workup, let's say you do an 18-month workup, which is standard in the SEAL teams, 12 to 18 months. That combat shooting school that we go to is only 2 weeks long.
Okay.
And then the other blocks of training, you're going to get some shooting, but you're not spending time on the range shooting and working drills and doing that stuff. Like we're expected to be the master of all these things. And it's like, it's kind of hard to do that when you're always doing all these different blocks of training. And so I was just like, man, why do we, and he knew that we had a civilian out that had taught us some shooting up at our mountain training facility. And he was like, he's like, hey, anyone want to do a little head-to-head competition with me? And he was like literally one of the top ranked like speed shooters in the world. And I was like, yeah, I'll run it with you. And I didn't even have my gear with me. I was just the range safety officer. So I borrowed a guy's weapon. I was like, let me confirm the hold on this real quick on his rifle. I was like, what do you have it sighted in? And he's like 5,200. I'm like, cool. That's how mine is as well. And then, literally grabbed his gun belt, his gun, put magazines in my pocket. And I beat this guy in this heads up shooting competition.
Right.
And it was like, okay. Cause I remember like the guys were like, bro, JP beat this guy, blah, blah, blah. And my master chief goes, why am I paying this guy
no kidding
all this money when JP can teach the same thing and can outshoot him?
Does it not matter that the guy's never been shot at? And now it's like whatever year, and there's all these people
it can, depending on the humility of the instructor. Because there's different levels of training.
Okay, so long as he's not speaking out of turn.
He's like, hey, this is what you do in a gunfight. And you're like, how many gunfights you been in? He's like, well, I mean, I'm just assuming. You're like, okay, guess what, bud?
Let's get somebody in here that doesn't have to assume.
100%. And that was the other part of like, let's make sure the guys have been there, done that. Like, would you want to learn from jiu-jitsu from somebody who's never actually rolled, but they've only watched videos?
Yeah.
Would you?
No, I wouldn't. I guess I'm just, I don't know. Like I said, like all they of them might can be able shoot to better than I can. I'm not trying to say. No. I'm just saying like if you're a SEAL
what you're saying is correct, and that's why we changed it.
Yeah,
these guys were great. So one of my buddies, Joe Rhodes, Army guy, was teaching at the civilian shooting school. The guy that owned the school. I'm not talking bad on Shaw's Shooting Institute. These guys. So if anybody's listening, they're like, "Oh, you're talking crap on Shaw's." No, I'm not. These guys were phenomenal, humble humans. That some of them had a military background, some were straight civilians. The guy that ran the shooting school started off mowing the grass. and then ran the whole place. He could outshoot most people.
I guess
the difference though, Ross Sanders was constantly sitting and talking with the operators going, hey, what are you guys doing overseas? What's changing? What's shifting? What are you seeing? What do I need to change? Hey, how can I change he is one of the most humble human beings I've ever met. Never claimed to be a gunfighter. Literally could outshoot almost everybody in the SEAL teams, but never once claimed to be a gunfighter. He changed the way he taught to better prepare us to get in gunfights. So we would still use them when we could.
You bet.
What I proposed was we need more of it. We can't afford Ross Sanders and his guys year round. We don't have that budget.
Yeah, you need more than 2 weeks.
But we need more than 2 weeks. But
to
if
me,
I
that
can call Dale and a few of my other buddies and say, hey, man, you're a really good shot. You're a really good shot.
Yeah.
Hey, as extra collateral duties, would you like to help be marksmanship cell instructors? This is what's going to be required of you. We're going to go to these schools. We're going to get this gear. Do you want to do it? And you're like, yeah, I do. And then, maybe we ask our young gun over there and he's like, man, I just got married. I have a kid. I came to the training command to take a break. And I'm like, cool, no factor, buddy. Like this isn't
but for me, that would be like not necessarily learning jujitsu from someone who had only watched it. It would be learning jujitsu from someone who had only rolled jujitsu, but never been in an actual fight.
Yeah. You don't want that guy as your MMA coach.
Right. So Cowboy Cerrone has been in here and rolled with us a lot.
He's a legend. That guy, I mean, he is one of my favorite fighters.
There's just these nuances that he has to his teaching where it's like, no, you need to do.
Yeah, and he's like,
yes,
that's
you can
not
try
practical.
this, but they're gonna push this away.
Yes. So what you're saying,
and he'll also apply while you have them here, like he gave us this 3 second rule. You know, like in this position, you have 3 seconds before you are completely unconscious. Like I've put you in this position. Once I have you here, it's a 1 count, 2 count, 3 count, and then you're unconscious.
Yeah.
And so you've got that, and adding that nuance to me would be similar to be like, it's not that the civilian doesn't know how to shoot the gun. Like obviously he can shoot this gun, but if Jocko is teaching you how to shoot this gun, and he's been in Ramadi for however long, he's gonna have a different like no. This is a little more applicable.
Yeah, and that was what was cool is because our community was really good with sharing lessons learned. And now we're sitting there, and now so I take lead on it. I'm the leading petty officer of the marksmanship cell, and we also revamped our combatives program as well. But my main focus was the shooting because I like shooting rifle and pistol. I love it and long range, and that's also like there's another company that Leif created for him, Jocko, and I. It's called Bruiser Arms. It's so that we can provide high-level training to echelon front clients that want a different experience.
Right.
But we also know the value of people being taught properly how to shoot and practicality, and also our law enforcement of like, yeah, hey, you have a weapon, but it doesn't mean you need to use it all the time. Why are you using it? Because you don't see any other means. Well, now if I teach you how to de-escalate a situation properly, you're not going to grab your weapon. You don't need to. And so it's all about education and training of practical situations and scenarios. And that's what we're able to do with the marksmanship cell. Hey guys, when you're in a gunfight, this is what happens to the body. When you're being shot at and rounds are literally zipping right past your head and hitting the concrete wall behind you, and the fragment of the concrete is hitting you in the back of the neck.
There you go. Yeah. Now tell me what to do.
This is what's going to happen. Yeah. This is what's going to happen to your body. Everything's going to slow down. That's why you can't rely on fine motor skills. Because some of these fancy speed shooters like this is this. And I'm like, that doesn't work in a gunfight. You lose fine motor skills. It's gross motor skills.
What is an instruction that you might have heard?
So I'll give you a very easy example.
That you were like, no, that like what's something that someone might teach doesn't work?
Yeah, I wish I had my pistol on me right now because I could show you. Right, if it's clear and safe, I could show you. If you want to clear and safe,
I can clear it. I mean, I'm probably not going to need it in here. And if I did need it in here, I'm going to hand it to you.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that they'll teach in shooting, like say, hey, gun's empty, right? I'm shooting my drill, slide racks, locks to the rear because there's no more rounds, and that slide catches on an empty magazine. That's what keeps it That's what locks it to the rear.
Gotcha.
So I take out that magazine, right? And so people are like, okay, you hit this thumb release for that. And they're like, oh, just hit it with your thumb. Well, what you want to do is actually pull the gun into that thumb. Because if I'm just trying to do this, I'm probably going to miss it. But if I'm shooting and I keep it here in my working space and I pull it towards myself as I hit that, there's a higher probability that I'm going to push it hard enough for it to fall out. And I don't need to feel that. I don't need my fine motor skills. They're gone. When you're in a gunfight, your fine motor skills are gone. Gotcha. Unless you've trained yourself to such a high level that you can now bring yourself into that point.
Yeah.
So like Cowboy MMA, when he's fighting, he can hear all of his people, right? He couldn't have his wife in the crowd at times because he would hear her voice. Was that what he used to say? Because he's such a high level human being. He has trained himself to such a high level that he actually has been able to overwrite the ways in his brain that tunes those things out. I'm the same way. When I fought amateur MMA, because of the gunfights that I've been in, the high stress training, I literally could hear everything my coaches said. I could hear my dad, my mom, my wife, my friends, everybody, because of high stressful training. So I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on this. This pulls it in.
Yeah. If that's your habit,
yeah,
you know that clip is coming out.
And it works. Called a magazine, FYI.
What? Sorry?
Not a clip. I blame rap music. It's called a magazine. Magazine holds the rounds that goes into the gun.
Yeah.
A clip holds the rounds together that used to be inserted into old guns.
Gotcha.
But yeah, rappers call it clips. I mean, unless you're trying to be a rapper, which I respect, but.
Oh, did I say clip?
You said clip.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought we said. I was wondering why you were saying that. I was like, oh.
I feel like we were doing a Napoleon Dynamite. Grab my wrist. No, my other wrist. No, grab my wrist.
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't realize I said clip.
Yeah. Well, most people don't. And I was jokingly educating on that.
No, I'll take it.
So this is also a universal thing.
Obviously. I don't know what I'm doing.
Most guys, almost all the guns, that is going to be a universal, hey, the mag release is right there.
Yeah.
In almost every single gun. So I just pull it in, I'm going to hit it. And it's here, and it allows my hand to be right here to now strip the magazine out as I'm going for my other magazine. Now, if it already fell out, how much wasted motion do I have here? None. So if the magazine hasn't fallen out, I pull it out.
Fell.
Thank you. Fell out. What did I say? Fallen. Fallen. That's cool. Just make fun of the kid with the speech impediment.
No.
Hope you feel good about yourself.
I had to come back because of the clip coming. Anyway, sorry.
No, that's cool. I mean, I guess comedians make fun of kids with needs, but that's fine. So when the magazine falls out, if the magazine doesn't fall out, I'm not wasting any motion. I'm literally just stripping it out, grabbing a new one, bringing it in. Because the worst thing you can do is hit that. The magazine stays in there, and I go, oh, I'm going to grab a magazine. And it's like,
yeah.
And you're like trying to shake it out. Well, guess what? Shaking it creates friction. The friction, magazine's not going to fall out. Now going like this might help you, or lifting it might help you. But now what you're going to do is you're going to have a magazine in this finger. You're trying to pull it out like this, put a new one in. That's wasted time in a gunfight. So I pull it in, strip out, new one in. And then what I've seen instructors say is like, hey, just hit the slide release with your thumb, right? Well, that's kind of hard to do.
For sure.
Well, guess what? That's a fine motor skill. They're like, oh, just hit it with your thumb. I've literally seen guys in stressful situations on the range doing this. Guess what works every time? Magazine in, roll here.
Gotcha.
And again, economy of motion. This weapon is all right here. So as I go from here and rolling the weapon over so that I can grab it, it's still face down range. If I have to shoot right now, can I?
Yeah.
100%. Bang, bang, bang. And it allows me to go. So that's what we teach at Bruiser Arms based off of what we taught in the SEAL teams.
Based off of being in a gunfight.
In an actual gunfight.
Having been in a gunfight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, the fact that you get to learn from cowboy jiu-jitsu and MMA is unreal. And to your point that you said earlier.
Especially since he doesn't teach. He does not like to. Like you could I've heard him say obnoxious amounts of money that he would not teach for.
That's interesting.
He comes here and we're putting him on bulls and teaching him so he doesn't mind. And we're rolling anyway. It's not like I'm just trying to exploit him.
Yeah,
like I'm going to roll that day.
Yeah, it's what we teach at
He's here.
The power of relationships.
Yeah, but he, the difference is, he can learn to ride bulls from anybody. You know what I mean? So like he could call anybody and they'd be like, yeah, come on over. Now he wants to learn from the world's greatest bull rider. So
my mom's favorite bull rider, right?
Your mom's favorite bull rider. That's so awesome.
Dude, Leif Babin, I was talking to him on the way here and he's like, Trace and True, his sons, right? He has 3 kids.
That's so
Trace,
cool.
Liberty, and True. They all know who you are. I told you my business partner, Stephen Little, his son, Brody, huge fan of you. Like, I mean, huge fan. And like, they all say your mom's favorite bull rider.
That's
and it's
funny.
just amazing. Like my son, Aiden, big fan as well. And he's just like, bro, I can't believe you're getting to go hang out with them today. I'm like, well, and he's 18, he's graduating high school and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do next in life. And yeah, he's just such a good kid. But, anyway, so we teach based off of, actual experience. And, to your point, you're like, hey, you're not going to want somebody who has only done like sport jiu-jitsu or competition jiu-jitsu teaching you jiu-jitsu for MMA.
Well, and
they
I guess,
don't know. They've never been hit before.
I guess the difference would be kind of like that instructor that you mentioned. Like, if if they know that, that's fine.
Yeah.
And, like you still have plenty to teach me.
Yep.
But it would be at the point where they legitimately don't know that, but they act like they do. And that's in anything.
And they could actually teach you some bad stuff. I saw
Correct.
I saw a black belt teaching like deep half one time. He's like, yeah, if this happens, you want to go here. And I'm like, okay, what's the situation?
Yeah.
Oh, he's just saying if you get knocked down on the ground. I'm like, oh, so we're out in the street? I'm like, put me in that position. He's like, all right. And I wasn't hitting him hard, but I was just like, cool, what are you going to do? I was like, if I had hammer fists right now or punching you, you would be unconscious and then close to death.
Right.
This is stupid for self-defense. Now, sport, cool, do it all day long. But why would you ever want to be in that position? He's like,
because
well, I can do this. I'm like, okay, do it to me before I can hit you. He couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because all I had, he thought I was going to hit him in his face. You know where I hit him? In his stomach.
Yeah.
I literally just hit him in the stomach. He's like, ugh, and I hit him again. And then I was able to move. And I'm like, I'm not even hitting you in the face. And you can't execute this move. So
that's where I'm at with jiu-jitsu, because I'm not trying to enter competitions. It would be nice to be able to defend myself. Now,
cool.
I know that we can't throw punches at each other every morning, and I don't want to. I don't want to be hit every day.
No.
But I want to learn in an effective way. And that's, and the instructors that I have been in some fights. And so that's helpful. But when Cowboy comes, it's just another level.
That's unreal.
It's
it's like when I get to train with Jocko and Dean Lister and for me, like my professor Formiga at 555. That's the gym I train at, 555 in Highlands Village. Like Formiga's a 9-time world champion, 14 times Pan American champion. As a black, just his gold medals as a black belt, has over 400 of them.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's like, you learn from somebody that, hey, there's practicality to everything that he teaches, and to have access to those high level people, it's unreal. And it's cool. Yeah. Cowboy could go probably, like you said, anywhere, but he chose you, and he chose you for a reason, because you're a professional. You're one of the best at what you do. You conduct yourself in a professional manner. That's the other difference, is it's how you conduct yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've learned in business the last couple of years, even more so at Echelon Front. There's a lot of people teaching similar things to what we teach at Echelon Front. The difference is the professional level that we maintain at Echelon Front, and what Jocko expects of us, what Leif expects of us, and honestly, what we all expect of each other. And because we know what we do at Echelon Front is a way to honor our brothers. And again, going back to like the way God designed us, he's created us to pursue excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you want to be average in life?
Yeah. I
think it's an insult. So, so many things we could talk about, man.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the time. Dang, we've been going. Yeah.
Oh.
Because we got that other half before the rain came in. What time is it?
1:25.
Oh, plenty of time. Well, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate all the stories. The Mike Mansour deal, I think about him often, just having read the book.
Yeah.
The 2 guys next to him, were they also SEALs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
For some reason, I thought I'd remembered them being a different branch.
Nope, there's 3 guys on that rooftop with them, 3 SEALs. 2 of them were right next to him.
Gotcha.
And there's some Iraqi soldiers, but
wasn't there
they're
like,
far away.
Yeah, didn't he have like an out? It's not like he.
Oh yeah, he had the out.
There's like a stairway or something.
He had the out
behind him or something like that.
He didn't even. It wasn't even an option for him.
In his mind, do you think that in that moment it wasn't an option for him? Do you think how much of that is like training and awareness? Man, you guys are fighting every day. I guess the reason I think about it is just like, what are the odds that someone, as everyday civilian, has that is their impulse reaction?
An everyday civilian isn't going to be mentally prepared like we were going to Ramadi.
Yeah.
Our leadership prepared us for that environment through hard training by telling us the truth and empowering us. We all knew the risk.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't allowed to go. Like when we got there, they had to verify, everyone verified and checked, like, hey, are all wills up to date?
Mm.
I had my funeral planned out.
Yeah.
Like, here's the slides. Like the slideshow that plays at people's funerals, I had already created it.
Yeah.
And throughout deployment, I kept updating it with new pictures and song, you know what I mean? Like, cause I didn't want somebody to have to do that. I didn't want my parents to have to do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys did the same thing. And Mikey was a man of faith. He loved the Lord. He was saved. I know he's in heaven with Seth and Derek and all these guys. Like all these guys are in heaven. I know that. There was a saying for a while when we kept losing guys. They're like, God is building the ultimate SEAL team right now because the frogmen that he's been taking are the best of the best.
Yeah.
And Mikey was a man of faith and he knew the risk.
Yeah.
And he was, I believe, able to make that decision without hesitation because he was prepared to meet his maker. We all were. I mean, there was multiple times on that deployment where we were in situations, and this story is longer for another time if you ever want to do this again, but there was a situation that I was like, okay, if I stay here, I'm dead. If I run out there, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm dead.
No, we can hear it.
And it's one of those things that we were able to make those decisions because of our leadership. So we were doing a patrol to go do a clearance in a really bad area, and we're walking on North Stadium Road, and we get into this massive ambush. I mean, enemy fighters shooting at us from all different directions, elevated positions. I'm walking as our point man. I immediately yell out contact front as I'm like shooting my machine gun, and I'm trying to push across the street there's a gunny sergeant that was with us, Gunny Gibson, awesome, solid guy, great human. He pushes to the north side of the road, so I'm pushing to go over there with them, and I'm like having to now fight my way across to be over there with them. And the guys are making the call to peel back. So Seth makes a call. All the guys, we're literally having rounds ricochet and impact all around us. We had 5 guys get shot up in that ambush. They make their way back to the courtyard that we just passed. They get in there. They close the gate. That was one of the loudest sounds I've ever heard in a gunfight. Was being out on the street, isolated by yourself, and you just hear that metal gate close, and I'm like, oh shoot, we're out here alone. And we had to make our way back there. I mean, they made the right call. Like, hey, we got to get everybody into this courtyard, because if they would have stayed out there or tried to keep the gate open and like tell us to come in, like they would have been shot up. I mean, it was unreal.
Wow.
And we had another Overwatch position that was watching all this happen. And they're like, we can't do anything to support them. And so the gunny's like, hey, I'm going to bump across, lay down cover fire. So I'm laying down cover fire. He runs across the street, so that what we're doing is called cover and move. It's what we teach at Echelon Front for, in regards to relationships and stuff. But so he bumps across the street, and he stops midway in the street to stop and lay down fire. So when he stops, I hear from his weapon. So I know he's laying down cover fire so that I can move. And as I turn to look at him as I'm moving, I just see this round just blow out the back of his leg right above his kneecap. And he immediately just hits the ground. And again, it was one of those like everything just slows down. It's like whoa, whoa, whoa. And I just remember rounds just going like impacting around him, and they're impacting all around me. And I'm like, Like, and I'm trying to shoot back. I'm like trying to see where we're being shot at. You know, everyone's like, oh, you'll just see where they're shooting from. Okay. Have you ever been in a gunfight? Because if I'm in a building, one room deep, shooting out of that room, unless you're looking at that window and see the muzzle flash, you have zero clue where that round came from.
Right.
Zero clue. Because also rounds in an urban environment, guess what? The sounds do.
Echo.
They echo and bounce all over. People are like, oh, that's where the round. No, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's going back to our training thing, is trying to get that into our community. And I'm like trying to shoot back from where I see people, where I see muzzle flash, and just laying down cover fire just around me. I'm just spraying and praying, as they say. And I was like, man, I'm literally out in the middle of the open on the corner of a street. If I push north, I'm now isolated completely from my guys, where we have enemy fighters moving around. We know that they're shooting at us from the north, and I'm exposed. Like, I have nowhere to go. And if I stay there, I'm going to be shot. But if I run to the gunny sergeant, I'm probably going to be shot because there's rounds bouncing. If I just run straight to the gate, I leave him out there to die, which is not an option because he's going to bleed out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right. So I start laying down my own cover fire, run out to him, tuck my machine gun under my right shoulder, laying down cover fire, grab him, and I just drag him back to the gate. And I'm yelling for help. I'm like, somebody help me. Like, somebody get out here and help me. I need help. I need help. I'm like, yeah, because I can't pull him fast enough. And rounds are literally just coming in and impacting. What was crazy is I had a hedge of protection around me, man.
Yeah.
I was completely encompassed by angels. That not one round hit us, man. Like, literally guys shooting straight at us, and rounds hitting and ricocheting and going different directions. Side note, which is crazy, at this exact same time that this is happening, my parents and my grandmother were woken up and were just told, from the Holy Spirit, get on your knees and pray right now.
Dang.
And I didn't know that until like a little bit later, because whenever we got back, I'll finish the story, but I checked my emails, and I had emails from my parents like, hey, we just need to know you're okay.
Yeah.
And I remember calling them on a satellite phone, and my mom just started crying when she heard my voice, because she was like, your dad and I and your grandmother were all woken up at the same time, and the Holy Spirit told us to pray for you and your guys. Dang. And I was like, what time was that? And it was exactly when we were in this massive gunfight. So I get him back close to the gate, and this young Marine who was isolated out there, he was around the other corner that we had originally first come around. And so he's out there like trying to
Leif with you?
Leif is on the other side of the city. I'm with Seth Stone in Delta Platoon, right?
Okay.
And so he comes around the corner and he sees me like struggling. So he runs out to help me, and he gets shot in the chest, falls back, gets back up, and he's like helping me drag it. I'm like, well, it hit his body armor. Thank God he's wearing his body armor. And so they open up the gate. They hear us. We drag him all the way in. And immediately I'm like, all right, knee in the middle of his femoral artery to stop the bleeding. And I'm just holding everything together. And I'm yelling for my corpsman. I'm like, I need a corpsman. I need a corpsman right now. I'm like yelling his name. I'm like, Wes, where you at? Where you at, man? And what I didn't realize is he was dealing with 5 other guys that had been shot up. And so he's like, prioritize and execute. He's like, okay. Hey, this guy's going to die if I don't get, these are all like, they're going to be okay wounds. So he comes over, he takes over, and I'm like, oh man, I'm done. Right. I'm just like, I remember taking a drink of water out of my Camelback, and it just being like the most amazing tasting water that was like hot at the time. And immediately Seth was like, hey, I need you on the rooftop. We have enemy fighters moving on our position. And he's using his radio, talking to Jocko, talking to the battlefield commander. Like, he's trying to coordinate us to get a casualty evacuation plan in place to come grab these guys, but they can't come in because there's a bunch of enemy fighters. And so we need to hold these enemy fighters off before they can come in and bring in the tanks and the Humvees with the 50 cals to just lay waste. So I run up on the rooftop. I tell the guys what's going on. We set security. We have guys that are trying to like come and shoot at us from other rooftops. We kill all these guys. We call it in. Seth is working his radio, shooting his gun out of the gate when he could. And, they call in the the Humvees and the tanks, the Bradley fighting vehicles, they come in, they set security. We get the wounded guys loaded up. They get out of there, and then we foot patrol back to the base. But it was pretty crazy, man.
Dang.
And there's a lot of those situations. This was in Ramadi.
That's the second deployment in Ramadi.
Yeah, this was all Ramadi. We had days like that almost every single day, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
constantly. What was maybe one of the more heroic moments that you got to witness that stuck with you, just watching your guys work?
Well, I mean, our medic that was working on those guys in that courtyard during that time was absolutely incredible. And, I mean, there was so many, like Seth did so many great things as a leader. My buddy Benny, he's out, he did 20 plus years in SEAL teams. And, here's the deal. If Benny wouldn't have been in the leadership position above me out at Camp Corregidor, he would have been the lead sniper. No doubt. I mean, he taught me how to be a sniper in addition to the sniper school that I went to. He was my mentor. He was my big brother in the SEAL teams in regards to my skill sets as a sniper and as a point man. Benny was a great, humble leader. Literally just be like, cool, JP's got this. I don't care. I'm just doing my job as, he's acting as our platoon chief. I mean, outside of like Mikey obviously doing what he did, Mark doing what he did. I mean, I just remember multiple times. I mean, like that story I just told you, that was not an uncommon type of gunfight for us to be in. Yeah. And so there's multiple times where, like, I remember at the very beginning, us getting this gunfight, and, there's like this soldier who had caught some frag, a round ricocheted, hit metal, and like cut his face really bad. And he just has blood coming down his face. And he's like, and I'm like, hey, you're good. We're in the middle of a gunfight. And in the middle of the gunfight, like we're trying to maneuver, and our corpsman sees like this guy sitting there with blood and runs out to check on him to make sure my buddy Wes, like who was our corpsman, that's his nickname, was an incredibly brave human. And you look at him, you're like, he wasn't a SEAL. You look at me, you're like, he wasn't a SEAL. You look at Benny, you're like, he wasn't a SEAL. Now I'm a lot bigger than I was in the teams. At that time, my first platoon, I was like 155, 165. Ramadi, I'd bulked up to like 185, and I just couldn't get bigger than that. But, I guess maybe if you're like, oh, I'm a SEAL, you'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But like Benny and those guys, they're a little bit smaller than me, shorter than me. Didn't look like what the traditional Navy SEAL looks like. Like Seth Stone, who's like 6'1", 235, just jacked, you're like, okay, Jocko. That makes sense. Yeah. Jocko, you're like, I was a Navy SEAL. Yeah, I believe you. You know what I mean? Leif Babin, Navy SEAL. Yep, I believe that. But these guys, Benny and Wes, were incredible humans, like so incredibly brave. I mean, there's multiple times like we're in the middle of gunfights and I see Benny on the radio just looking around, like making calls, directing guys, like not zero regard for his safety, but having to be in those positions to make the right calls. Our medic, like I said, Wes, that's his nickname, like running out in the middle of the street to work on guys and just make sure they're okay and taking care of people, everybody above himself. And I mean, there's not one guy in our task unit that did not do a heroic act. I mean, not one guy. And some of those guys are still in. So I don't want to, say their names, but one of the guys, Matt Hasby, was in Charlie platoon with Leif, now works for us at Echelon Front as an instructor. At the very beginning of our deployment, he was shot in the face by a 50 cal. But it was a blue on blue incident where the round had slowed down going. It was from the 50 cal mounted on the top of a tank, and it had slowed down going through the wall enough to where when it hit him, it just lodged in, fractured his face, and was sticking out of his face when Johnny Kim, who was our medic, got up to the rooftop to work on him.
Wow.
Yeah. And then also he got shot out of a tower by an RPG when he was working as a sniper. Dang. And as he was getting literally out of that way to get away from that RPG, that was like, he sees it just coming in towards him. He's like, oh shoot, like trying to get out of that tower, hits the buttstock of his sniper rifle.
Wow.
And he was a SEAL that they talk about in Extreme Ownership that fell through the roof.
Oh yeah.
So everyone jokes like, I don't know if he was lucky or unlucky, not sure yet, but Matt's a great example of like just the protection that God had over him on that deployment. Crazy, crazy situations. And like, there's so many times that Matt was in positions of just heroic executing at a high level as a sniper, as a, just as a gunfighter and as a leader. And like I said, there's not one person in our task unit that I'd be like,
yeah, maybe shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, I don't know. No, everybody.
Right.
Everybody. And, I'll tell you, the most heroic, incredible people that I was able to work alongside were the soldiers and Marines that were on that deployment. These Marines and these soldiers were some of the most incredible humans I've ever gotten to work with. I learned so much from them, and we had really good relationships. Yeah. And they came to our aid every single time we needed it. Yeah. And we came to their aid every time they needed it. If they needed support, we were there. And it was really cool to see the relationships that we built with those guys.
Man.
It was crazy.
That is.
And I was 23 years old in that position.
It's a lot of life.
It's a lot of life.
I get a lot of 22, 23-year-olds come in as interns. Some of them have lived some life, and
I bet.
I don't know that any of them have lived that much life at 22.
That's not good or bad.
Right. Yeah. No. It's no, I'm just saying, it's nothing against someone who doesn't do it. No. I'm not saying that.
Oh, no, I know you weren't, but I want a listener to hear that.
A 22-year-old that's been through some of that stuff. Sometimes I see it with basketball players or football players. You look at them and it's like, that guy's 23. Just like the life he's lived, having been in a professional league. They number one, they look like they're 38, but then having been through some of, but more so with a 23-year-old Navy SEAL in 2006.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Second deployment.
In 2006, that's I don't know. That's back when it was the Wild West over there.
It was a Wild West. And it was crazy, but I was just doing my job, and I
had a buddy tell me once, it was like, we got back over there in 2003, 4, 5, 6. Eventually they said, all right, y'all got to stop running over people in Humvees. It was just the Wild West.
It was crazy. But
so I hear.
Yeah. Allegedly.
I'm just saying, a 22-year-old in those days, the life he lived would have been just.
Well, I'd go home on leave and hang out with my buddies from back home, and I'm like, this is different.
This is different.
I'm different. Nothing bad against those guys. Bad. But when they're like, I'm like, come on, let's go hang out. Let's go grab some drinks and dinner, And they're like, oh, I gotta get up early for work. I'm like, what time do you work? I gotta be at work at 10. I'm like,
yeah.
Wait, what?
No kidding.
Like, I think it'll be okay. And I remember you saying this on Joe Rogan's podcast. You were talking about how hard rodeo guys party. I'll say team guys probably beat you guys on the partying aspect.
Yeah, I bet. Definitely me.
Not that that's not a good, I'm not saying that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I'll say team guys go hard.
Yeah, but
we work hard, we party hard. And that was just kind of the culture that we had. Like, hey, and it was like, hey, if you're going to, I remember my LPO, my first platoon, he's like, hey, if you're going to be out hooting with the owls, you better be up soaring with the eagles in the morning.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go out and party and drink and cool, guess what? We work.
Yeah.
And you better be ready for work, and you better be sober.
Was there anybody that did it that you can think of?
I'm sure some guys that just, were just turds and be like, oh, I'm hungover, I can't work today. But
no. I mean, that didn't party.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh yeah. In the teams?
Yeah,
for sure. There's guys that I was a single team guy. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
right.
There would be guys that were married. They'd go out with the guys, and it's like, hey, I'm going to head home and call my wife, or I'm going to Skype with my family. Like, those guys, a lot of my, actually all the married guys that I ever worked with, they weren't out partying all night. Now they might go out and have drinks with the guys and then go home to call their wives, or they're going to be the guys that are like, hey, I'm the DD, I'm going to drive, but a single team guy, it's like a rock star. You're living that rodeo rock star life.
Yeah,
it's unreal. Whether that's good or bad.
I believe it.
But now as, a married man with a family and, back on that strong Christian path, I look back to those days and I'm like, man, I just wasted, so many opportunities where I could have been living my life to honor God.
Mm-hmm.
And, I could have been growing the kingdom. I could have been doing, and that's, so I try to be intentional with the ministry I'm a part of. Jesus and jiu-jitsu is just like, hey, I got to help give back. As a Christian, there's no greater gift than we can give other people is the knowledge of Jesus Christ and what it means to be saved, and having that gift of salvation. And I'm ashamed of my lack of boldness when I was younger, because I still could be an awesome, badass Navy SEAL and a bold Christian man leading people to Christ.
For sure.
And I didn't. And I did not live a life that I should have been living.
Yeah.
And
David was a man, according to God,
yes.
David was a man after God's own heart.
And that guy was flawed.
He was flawed, but he was also a warrior, you know?
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
Bring back 100 foreskins, and he brought back 200.
Yes.
You know, he cut their off, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think a man of God can also be someone that's...
Oh, you can be a man of
feared.
God and a warrior and willing to do harm. Like, that's the difference. Like, are you capable of doing harm yet choose to not?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Correct.
that's what an actual
That's
man
self-control.
is. That's self-control.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's something that I'm just talking about, like the partying that I did. And the drinking
I understand.
And the women. Like, that's a conversation I'm going to have with my son one day.
Yeah.
And my daughters. And I'm transparent with my kids. And, you know, what's crazy is, like, I've talked to some people about that, and they're like, bro, you know, you weren't that bad. Like, you're harder on yourself. And I was like, man, I was a virgin all throughout high school.
Yeah.
Because I was going to wait until I was going to get married.
You bet.
That's the way I was raised.
Word up.
And I mean, you know, obviously, unfortunately, that didn't happen. And that's something that I have to deal with. And I know I've been forgiven for those sins. I know it doesn't jeopardize my salvation, but it's sad, you know, when I think back about how, you know, I defiled that gift that God gives us. And, you know, I can't change it, but I can share those lessons with youth and kids. That's why my wife and I love serving at our church on Wednesday nights. We go to a church in Keller, Texas called Milestone. They have this incredible youth program. And when I'm in town, we're there serving on Wednesdays. And when I'm not in town, my wife's there serving. And it's cool. Like, we've been able to help lead a small group. And, you know, I have one of the kids who texted me the other day. He's like, hey, man, I have a question about dating. And I'm like, what do you got, bud? And we're just talking through this. And I can share all the mistakes I made. And I'm telling this kid, like, hey, man, don't make these mistakes. I promise you. Like being a bold Christian man is the coolest thing that you can do.
Do you get to roll, or have you rolled with Matt Chandler? Yeah.
He goes to our school. He goes to our jiu-jitsu school.
Cool.
Yeah, he shared his testimony at our last Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu event.
Yeah,
it was pretty cool.
He might come out and roll with us, and then we'll do a podcast.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Matt Chandler's a great guy.
Yeah, I've been listening to his stuff for friggin' 15 years.
Yeah, his testimony that he gave at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu was unreal.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. And that's the other cool thing. We've had everybody at our events, like just regular people, like share their testimony. And that's what we do at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. It's an event that, hey, we're going to give a free Jiu-Jitsu seminar from a high-level world-class black belt. Somebody shares their testimony, offers prayer for salvation. Hey, if anybody needs Bibles, let us know. We've got them. And then boom, hey, open mat for Jiu-Jitsu.
You bet.
And we have coolers full of energy drinks and, you know, waters and everything, and protein drinks for people for free. We get those things donated, and it's awesome. And it's a really cool community. And we've had like people that have been led to the Lord that never would have gone to a church.
Yeah.
But they come to those events.
That's right.
Matt Chandler's testimony was incredible. So
yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Well, y'all check out Little Cattle Co., Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu, Echelon Front.
Yep. If you get bored and you want another podcast, I have a podcast.
Yeah, JP's got a podcast. Check that out. Thank you guys for listening in. Look him up on social media. And we're on to the next one.
Let's go, my man. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for rolling with us. Hopefully we do it again. Maybe next time we'll also do a little shooting.
We can facilitate both.
Well, Dale, yeah.